Hey everyone, Firescale Audiobooks here. If there's a novel you'd love to hear more of, you can support us on Patreon or Ko-fi. Depending on your tier, I'll make extra parts just for the stories you're most excited about. Usually I can only upload 4 to 5 parts of each novel, but with your support, we can go beyond that. And of course, don't forget to hit subscribe. It helps more than you know.
Chapter 101. Taming the Threat of War. 3. Ren was walking away with a small smile, the mushrooms in his hair still pulsing with amusement at Luna's reaction, when a soft roar made him stop. Klein's golden lion shone with an intense aura while its tamer blocked the hallway. "Hey, fungus!" Klein stepped forward, his voice trying to sound threatening, though the effect was somewhat lost due to his still childish tone. "What do you think you're doing getting so close to Luna?" The nearby students began paying attention, some discreetly, others not so much. The air grew thick with anticipation. Klein advanced with the confidence that only the heir of the Goldcrest family could possess, each step measured and deliberate. The mushrooms in Ren's hair pulsed while analyzing the mana patterns. The golden lion was an impressive beast, though its current manifestation revealed some inefficiencies in its cultivation. If it continued like that, the main line would be lost at silver rank. "We were just talking," Ren maintained his casual tone, though he noticed several students beginning to form a circle around them, anticipating trouble. "Luna doesn't need to talk with plebeians like you." Klein took another step forward, his lion rumbling softly. Ren took a small step back. "Not from fear, but from habit after so much training with Lin. She belongs to me." Ren blinked, genuinely confused. "Belongs to you? Can people belong to other people? Don't play dumb." Klein clenched his fists. "My father told me. Luna will be my fiancée when we're older, so she's mine. It's the natural order of things. Noble families like the Goldcrests and Starweavers are destined to unite." "Oh," Ren tilted his head, thoughtful. "But my mother says people can't belong to anyone. She says everyone owns themselves and thinking differently is—" What was the word? The mushrooms pulsed as if helping him remember. "Ah yes, half-witted." Klein's smile froze. "What did you say?" The golden lion roared more forcefully, its mane glowing with threatening intensity. The students took a step back, but Ren stood firm. "What could your mother know?" Klein spat the words. "My mother knows many things." Ren frowned, the mushrooms in his hair pulsing more intensely. "She knows how to cook for many people, she knows how to tell stories, she knows how to make people smile. And she definitely seems to know more than your father about people." Klein turned red with fury. "Don't you dare insult my father, filthy plebeian." "So she's just a plebeian cooking in some miserable restaurant. My father is the leader of the Goldcrest family. He understands how the world really works." The mushrooms in Ren's hair pulsed with even more intensity. "My mother knows that people's smiles can't be forced. And Luna definitely doesn't seem very happy or smiley when you're around." Klein turned even redder, his lion extended its claws. "Don't you dare talk as if you knew her. Luna is destined to be with me, it's the wish of our families." "What about her wish?" Ren tilted his head. "Have you ever asked her what she wants?" "I don't need to ask her." Klein took another threatening step. "It's her duty as a noble, something a miserable plebeian with a pathetic beast would never understand." "I think you're the one who doesn't understand," Ren smiled. "People aren't objects you can claim just because your father says so. Even a plebeian like me can see that. Or do you belong to your father? It's different." Klein advanced another step. "You don't understand anything. You—" The golden lion roared with all its might, making several students cover their ears. I what?" Ren maintained his smile, though his muscles tensed, preparing to dodge if necessary. Training with Lin had taught him to always be ready. Klein raised a fist, his face contorted in a childish fury. "I'm going to teach you your place, fungus." The ground shook violently, interrupting his threat. Students stumbled, surprised by the sudden tremor. The mushrooms in Ren's hair pulsed with alarm. This wasn't an ordinary earthquake. Another shake, stronger than the previous one, made the shelter's lights flicker. Ren and Klein exchanged one last look. Their personal dispute suddenly seemed much less important. "This isn't over." Klein backed away, though his voice had lost some of its previous conviction. "Don't think—" A third shake interrupted him. This time even the shelter's protective barriers flickered. The students began to murmur nervously. Moments before, "Your hippogriff fights pathetically without its tamer's guidance," Ignatius observed, while his phoenix's golden flames forced the beast to retreat. "Is that why you resort to those abyssal aberrations? Because you don't know how to properly use pure beasts?" The mercenary smiled. "You're right," he admitted while watching his hippogriff. "I made the mistake of leaving the worst to my griffin while trying to quickly eliminate the weakling with the penguin." His eyes narrowed, the scorpion mutations glowing with a threatening tone. "I shouldn't have underestimated the difference between a beast guided by its master and one acting alone." The supervisor, still maintaining his ice barrier, noticed something strange in the mercenary's tone. Director, careful, but Ignatius had already perceived it. The mana around the mercenary began flowing differently, as if it were. Come, the mercenary extended his arms. The golden hippogriff instantly stopped fighting, transforming into pure light that flowed toward its tamer. The scorpion's features were violently expelled from the mercenary's body. The abyssal beast fully materialized, its monstrous form immediately launching against the supervisor. The mercenary's body transformed again, but this time it was different. Where there had been grotesque plates before, now golden feathers sprouted following natural lines. His arms were covered in brilliant plumage while noble claws replaced the crystalline pincers. This, Ignatius observed the transformation with genuine interest, looks more like a true tamer's fusion. The mercenary extended his newly formed wings on his arms, each feather glowing with contained power. The transformation was elegant, almost beautiful in its symmetry. Isn't it? He smiled, his features now more avian like the director's but maintaining a harmonic balance with his human form. Although his smile widened, one of the things my body learned after so many abyssal experiments is how to extract more. Chapter 102, Taming the Threat of War. For this, Ignatius observed the transformation with genuine interest, looks more like a true tamer's fusion. The mercenary extended his newly formed wings on his arms, each feather glowing with contained power. The transformation was elegant, almost beautiful in its symmetry. Isn't it? He smiled, his features now more avian like the director's but maintaining a harmonic balance with his human form. Although his smile widened, one of the things my body learned after so many abyssal experiments is how to extract more. Ignatius barely had time to react. The mercenary's golden claws passed grazing his face as he threw himself backward. The director used his own phoenix claws, blocking the second attack by millimeters, golden feathers clashing against golden feathers. The mercenary feathers began to glow with more intensity. He arched his back as his transformation continued, pushing beyond natural limits. The air itself seemed to distort around him as his body reshaped itself. His arms, locked in a contest of strength with the director, lengthened and broadened, the transformation defying human anatomy. Impressive, isn't it? The mercenary pressed forward, gaining ground and strength against the director. When you truly accept becoming one with your beast, when you let the transformation reach its end. His claws lengthened further, digging into the director's skin, his face deforming slightly as a golden beak emerged, reshaping his features into something between human and raptor. This is an abomination. Ignatius manifested more power in his feathers, which burst into flames. You're perverting the sacred bond between tamer and beast. Perverting it, the mercenary pushed, his strength now far superior to before. We're improving it. Don't think, Ignatius counterattacked by wrapping his hands in flames, that just because you look more like a beast means it's better. Their claws fought wind magic against fire magic, creating shockwaves that made nearby trees tremble. Each clash sent sparks of golden energy cascading through the air. A true bond is about balance, about maintaining your humanity while channeling your beast's power. The mercenary laughed while fighting the blaze. Humanity. What good is humanity when you can be something superior? Several meters away, the supervisor fought against the abyssal scorpion. The beast was slower without its tamer, but its venom made each exchange mortally dangerous, forcing the supervisor to maintain constant vigilance. Look at what we've achieved. The mercenary nodded toward his golden wings that were beginning to separate from his arms while continuing to press his attack. Two beasts, complete transformation, and soon. His wind power began to gain ground and managed to graze Ignatius's shoulder. We'll have tamers capable of fusing with three. Ignatius retreated further, feeling the cut on his shoulder. It was superficial, but the fact that it had connected was worrying. All I see is someone who has forgotten what it means to be a tamer. The golden flames of his phoenix intensified, creating an aura that made the mercenary step back for the first time and sealed Ignatius' wounds. A true tamer guides their beast, doesn't become one. Empty words from someone limited by obsolete traditions. The mercenary began to gain ground again by generating thrust with his now separate wings. I'll show you the true power you achieve when you fully embrace the transformation. The mercenary's golden wings began launching cuts at Ignatius while his own arms, covered in denser feathers, kept his hands trapped. Each wing moved independently, creating a storm of slashing attacks from multiple angles. You see? He smiled while his wings attacked independently. You talk of nobility, of purity. But your transformation is limited, incomplete. Ignatius could only manifest his claws and wings on the same pair of arms. His movements lacked the versatility of his opponent, forced to choose between offense and defense with each motion. Look at your form, the mercenary fully extended his two extra upper appendages. So attached to human anatomy, don't you see the irony? You boast of nobility but move further from the truly noble ones. What are you talking about? Ignatius created a mane of flames to block the wind attacks, but some still got through, leaving shallow cuts across his defenses. The dragons, the mercenary broke through the fire using his wings. The true lords of beasts, 6 appendages, not 4. My base hippogriff and this form are closer to divinity than your pure transformation. The director was reduced to focusing on his phoenix's regeneration against the avalanche of attacks coming from multiple angles. The mercenary's wings not only gave him superior mobility, but functioned as additional limbs in combat, each one capable of launching its own deadly attacks. Meanwhile, the supervisor struggled to keep the abyssal scorpion at bay. His silver rank 2 penguin created increasingly thin ice barriers, while the silver rank 3 beast systematically destroyed them, each impact weakening the defensive line. Maintain the perimeter, he shouted to the guards who were fighting to contain the fires caused by the director's golden flames. Their earth beasts worked frantically, digging trenches and raising barriers to prevent the fire from spreading toward more trees and other parts of the academy. Your pure beast is failing, the mercenary pointed toward the supervisor. Your subordinate will die soon. The rank difference is evident, and abyssal beasts are superior in endurance. As if to emphasize his words, the scorpion broke through another ice barrier. Its stinger passed dangerously close to the supervisor's face, who barely managed to create a shield in time. Your methods are obsolete, Director. The future belongs to those who are willing to truly evolve. Ignatius tried to increase the power of his golden flames, but it became increasingly difficult to maintain regeneration. The mercenary was right. The ability to use his wings and arms independently gave him a significant tactical advantage. A cry of pain pierced the battlefield. The scorpion had managed to graze the supervisor's arm with its venom. The supervisor froze his arm at the point of impact, but the ice around the venom began to crystallize, the corrosion spreading rapidly. Supervisor, shouted one of the guards, but they couldn't abandon their position. If the golden fire spread beyond the perimeter, the entire academy would be in danger. The scorpion prepared its final blow. The supervisor, partially paralyzed by the venom, could barely maintain a weak ice barrier. Kill him already. The stinger descended like a chitinous lightning bolt. Chapter 103, Taming the Threat of War 5 Supervisor. One of the guards shouted, but they couldn't abandon their position. If the golden fire spread beyond the perimeter, the entire academy would be in danger. The scorpion prepared its final blow. The supervisor, partially paralyzed by the venom, could barely maintain a weak ice barrier. Kill him already. The stinger descended like a chitinous lightning bolt. He just had to finish off the only silver rank, and then the scorpion could help him with the director to clear the path. But a mass of living rock intercepted the attack. Professor Yang's stone behemoth struck the scorpion, its massive fist absorbing the venomous stinger's impact without difficulty, the crystalline substance barely marking its rocky surface. Sorry I'm late, Yang helped the supervisor to his feet while his beast kept the scorpion at bay. The students are safe, protected by the other professors in the shelter. The mercenary clicked his tongue in annoyance. More unnecessary interference. Yang's presence manifested as a wave of silver rank power that made the agent turn his head slightly. His enhanced senses clearly detected the threat level. Another silver, he evaluated while mentally directing his scorpion toward the new threat. The behemoth is slightly stronger than the penguin. It'll be a problem for the scorpion, not that there aren't more enemies, but... His eyes briefly moved toward some of the bronze-rank guards still containing the fires. He didn't even bother tracking them. Their attacks would barely scratch his golden feathers. But the silvers could pierce my defense, and if they work together with the director. His wings tensed while calculating. I need to end this quickly. The scorpion launched itself against the behemoth, its stinger seeking weak points in the living rock. Yang retreated, dragging the supervisor, coordinating his beast to keep the abyssal creature at bay. No more games, director. The mercenary beat his wings with more force and urgency, creating a wind gust that reduced Ignatius's golden flames. The director was momentarily exposed, his flames unable to reform quickly enough against the cutting wind. He's mine, the mercenary smiled. Without the director's gold rank power, most silvers wouldn't pose a threat. He could recover his egg and retreat before the king's aid. Something was wrong, the director was smiling. It was just an instant, a slight pull of his lips, but the mercenary noticed. His senses tried to expand to search for the trap, but, crack, a brutal force impacted against his leg from behind his knee. His legs, transformed with the hippogriff's power, withstood most of the damage but buckled under the precise strike. Continue reading on Empire. The mercenary lost his balance, his wings desperately trying to compensate. What? How didn't I sense? Lynn rolled on the ground, her crane manifested, elongating and especially increasing the power of her legs. The kick had been perfect, all her beast's strength concentrated in a single impact point. In the mercenary's fall, Lynn took advantage of her low position to execute an impossible spin, her transformed leg connecting brutally with the agent's jawbeak. The impact was devastating, making the mercenary's head violently snap back. The director's right hand broke free and his claws descended like a golden lightning bolt. Through his blurred vision, the agent saw the director lunge, his golden claws aiming straight for his throat. Consciousness was slipping away. Lynn's strike had been calculated to knock out. He managed to cover himself at the last moment, though the cost. Blood and golden feathers filled the air as the mercenary's arm fell severed. The pain helped him overcome his blurred vision with adrenaline. He saw the director lunging forward, his golden claws aiming again straight for his throat. I still have that, but I'll fail. My mission should keep this secret. But is my life of lesser value? No, to hell with that. His wings extended with a burst of power, creating a wind wave so intense that both Lynn and Ignatius were pushed back at the last moment. Damn you. The mercenary roared, while his scorpion dissolved into a sphere of violet light that returned to his body. His wings didn't stop beating with great force, maintaining distance while from his bleeding stump emerged a pincer that replaced the wound. You asked for it. His voice sounded distorted by rage and the mixed power of both beasts. Want to know how I got this far, Director? How I could map the depths without the changing tunnels losing me? The mercenary thought. The air began to vibrate with a strange energy while the mercenary pulled out a sphere from his bag that glowed with a purple aura and fed it with mana. The abyssal veins never change, and right below gold rank, before beasts reach platinum and can cross the barrier, exists the abyssal layer. The earth beneath their feet began to shake. Lynn and the director exchanged worried looks. Ignatius narrowed his eyes, studying the mana patterns emanating from the mercenary. The energy had a familiar behavior. Something he had read the theory of in ancient tomes in the kingdom's oldest archives. So this is it, he murmured while intensifying his flames and trying to resist the wind. Not only did they tame abyssal beasts, they found a way to navigate the abyss itself. The mercenary didn't respond, but his smile widened. His wings beat harder while the tremor increased. Only we can navigate that 500-meter layer, from 1,500 to 2,000 meters deep, where the endless hordes of monsters make passage impossible for others. The layer between gold and platinum, the director advanced, managing to push despite the cutting wind, his flames growing in intensity, where the hordes make passage impossible for those below platinum rank. His smile turned savage while the tremor increased. That's how you could map the changing depths and get here. Ignatius felt how the beasts in the lower levels stirred, responding to a frequency that only they could fully perceive. Ha ha ha, damn perceptive old man. That's right, know why? Because they recognize us as their comrades. The abyssals know we're their brothers, so say goodbye to your security. We'll always have ways to reach you when you least expect it. The wind intensified while the mercenary's violet aura grew. He no longer tried to hide his connection to the abyss, each beat of his mutations making the earth shake with more force. Ignatius concentrated all his power, his phoenix's golden flames reaching a blinding intensity as he prepared for his most powerful attack. The heat was so intense that the surrounding trees began to wither, their leaves curling and blackening. He had to stop him no matter what. Chapter 104, Taming Aliens. The wind intensified while the mercenary's violet aura grew. He no longer tried to hide his connection to the abyss, each beat of his mutations making the earth shake with more force. Ignatius concentrated all his power, his phoenix's golden flames reaching a blinding intensity as he prepared for his most powerful attack. The heat was so intense that the surrounding trees began to wither, their leaves curling and blackening. He had to stop him no matter what. Yino had found a way to navigate the 500 meters of the abyss, the space where only abyssal creatures reigned. But if the mercenary had made the first map, then perhaps it could still be destroyed before others followed his path. Ignatius released all his power in a wave of golden fire. For a moment, the battlefield transformed into an inferno of light and heat while both forces fought for supremacy. With a roar that made the trees tremble, the director managed to pierce through the wind barrier. But when the flames dissipated, the mercenary had vanished. In his place, a hole gaped in the earth. The tremor intensified while the echo of distant laughter resonated from the depths, a sound that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. He's gone, Lynn approached the hole's edge, straight to the depths. Ignatius took a step toward the hole, but his legs trembled slightly. The prolonged use of so much power had taken its toll, golden feathers falling from his partially manifested form. No, Lin put a hand on his shoulder. Going down now would be suicide. You have no earth specialty and you're exhausted. But if he escapes... The director clenched his fists, his golden flames flickering weakly like dying embers. Director, Yang approached, carrying the unconscious supervisor. The areas affected by the venom had expanded, covering much of his side with an otherworldly gleam. We need help here. Ignatius quickly evaluated the situation. His flames could neutralize the venom. Maintain the perimeter watched, he ordered while kneeling beside the supervisor. His hands glowed with a softer, more controlled fire that danced across the infected areas. Lin and Yang organized the remaining guards. The stone behemoth positioned itself near the hole, while the earth beasts reinforced the defensive positions, creating overlapping fields of protection. The director's golden fire worked methodically, burning away the venom and healing the underlying tissue. Drops of sweat ran down his forehead. He had little energy left after his massive attacks. A roar emerged from the depths, the sound unlike anything they'd heard around the normal academy depths. They're coming, shouted one of the guards, his earth beast trembling at the alien sound. The first beast emerged from the hole like a twisted shadow. Its body, a mass of chitin and tissue, barely had time to touch the ground before the director's flames consumed it, the creature's death scream echoing unnaturally. He had finished healing the supervisor just in time, but the creature wasn't alone. More beasts began to emerge, each more grotesque than the last. Yang's behemoth crushed several with its massive fists, while Lin used her crane-enhanced speed to intercept and drive back those trying to flank their position. A new roar, this time from another direction, this one deeper and more resonant. Sir, one of the guards pointed east. They're emerging from the ground, making new entrances. Lin cursed while kicking away a beast that tried to surprise her from behind. The monsters were using the mining tunnels, emerging through multiple points in a coordinated attack pattern. The shelter, her eyes widened with concern. Ren and the other children. The impact started as subtle vibrations beneath their feet like the prelude to an earthquake. The mushrooms in Ren's hair pulsed with alarm, detecting something moving under the shelter's floor, something that made their usual patterns fluctuate erratically. What is that? Klein whispered, his previous bravado forgotten in the face of the unknown. The impacts intensified. Some students began to murmur with concern. Keep calm, a professor's voice resonated through the chamber. This shelter was designed to resist any emergency. The walls are made with several meters of reinforced solid rock. Another impact, stronger. Ren's mushrooms pulsed with increasing intensity, their glow taking on an unusual pattern. Even if it were a worm invasion, continued the professor while other teachers organized the older students into defensive formations, the black earth layer in the construction makes it impossible for them to penetrate. It's completely safe. Klein stepped forward, his eyes fixed on the floor, all thoughts of his earlier confrontation with Ren forgotten in the face of a greater threat. Professor, he called with tense voice, but look at the floor. Ren saw it at the same time. A crack, barely visible, beginning to form in the solid rock. The mushrooms in his hair pulsed, as if detecting something completely alien to their knowledge base. Impossible, murmured the professor, approaching to inspect. This rock is specifically treated to. Another crack appeared, connecting with the first one. Ren's mushrooms pulsed with more urgency. The mana pattern they detected wasn't natural, wasn't like anything they had encountered in the mines. Professor, Ren stepped back, those aren't worms. As if confirming his words, more cracks began to appear. Klein retreated as well, his lion covering him protectively. Ren saw genuine fear in the noble's eyes, all pretense of superiority forgotten. Everyone back. The professor began manifesting his beast. The tremors ceased abruptly. A heavy silence fell over the shelter while students held their breath, the only sound the subtle hum of manifested beasts. Is it over? Klein murmured, his golden lion still alert, its mane bristling with tension. The crystalline cracks in the floor began to expand again. Maintain distance. Min and Taro came running, their faces pale with fear. Ren, Taro stopped beside him, his beetle manifesting from nervousness. Only you can know what's. The floor exploded. The first creature that emerged made Ren's mushrooms pulse with total confusion. Its body was a vertical column of translucent purple tissue, with no distinguishable head, just a series of concentric rings that pulsed with their own light. From its center emerged tentacles. By all the, Min couldn't finish the phrase. Another creature emerged. This one had a segmented exoskeleton that gleamed with violacious tones, but the segments didn't follow any recognizable pattern. They overlapped and intertwined as if in constant motion. The mushrooms in Ren's hair couldn't process the information they were receiving. These beasts didn't follow their known logic. "There's no information," murmured Ren while his mushrooms tried to analyze the creatures. "It's as if they came from somewhere completely different." Stay tuned with Empire Chapter 105 Taming Sense of Wonder. Ren's mushrooms couldn't process the information they were receiving. These beasts didn't follow their known logic, defying every pattern he had learned. "There's no information," murmured Ren while his mushrooms tried to analyze the creatures. "It's as if they came from somewhere completely different." "Fall back," shouted one of the professors while attacking one of the beasts, barely managing to inflict any damage despite his powerful beast. The students retreated in panic as more creatures emerged. A being that seemed made of intertwined tubes pumping violet liquid advanced toward them, its movements following no natural rhythm. "They're more horrible than I expected," Klein murmured, his lion growling at enemies that defied its comprehension. "What do we do, Ren?" Min asked, his water snake manifested but coiling nervously. "What kind of beasts are these?" Taro also turned to him. "Are they like the deep worms in living tunnels, or more like the bugs or assassins you told us about?" The mushrooms in Ren's hair pulsed erratically, trying to process what they were seeing, their usual patterns breaking down in the face of the unknown. He watched one of the creatures that had an elongated body covered in overlapping plates of deep purple. It had no visible eyes, but dozens of antennae vibrated constantly. Ren found himself speechless for the first time in a long while. His mushrooms couldn't provide useful information. The beasts didn't follow the normal patterns he had learned to recognize. "I don't know," Ren finally admitted, the sensation of ignorance hitting him like a physical weight. "I have no information about them." Min and Taro exchanged surprised looks. Ren always knew something, always had some idea of how to proceed. A roar resonated in the chamber as a larger beast emerged. Its body was a mass of dense tissue with multiple appendages ending in branching structures. "Defensive formation," Professor Wei's voice cut through the panic. "Senior students form a perimeter. You've studied abyssal beasts." The teachers moved with the precision that only comes from real experience in the army during their military service. Their beasts attacked while they took strategic positions. "Don't let them advance," shouted another professor while his elephant bull charged one of the creatures. "Test elements until you find their random weakness," Wei directed his manticore. "Bronze rank, seek elemental weakness. Silver rank, attack directly. Brute force works if you have enough power." The senior students who had advanced in their cultivation organized quickly. One launched a water attack that made one of the beasts writhe in pain. Another discovered his wind beast could disarm the protective plates of another. "This is revealing," murmured Ren while watching the battle unfold with fascination and apprehension. He observed, fascinated, as the teachers and experienced students worked together, testing different approaches until finding the effective way to eliminate each type of beast. It was for him a reminder that the world was larger and stranger than his mushrooms could show him at this level. "It's like starting over," he whispered, a small smile forming on his lips despite the danger. "There's so much I don't know," Ren observed with renewed interest. Perhaps he didn't know these beasts, had no information about their patterns or weaknesses, but that only meant there was more to discover. Of course he was afraid of the unknown. But he had always been brave, because he had always liked the idea of being an explorer like the Wandering King from his book. The initial feeling of vulnerability slowly transformed into something else. The same feeling of excitement and curiosity that had led him to leave home or explore the mines in the first place. "Well," he finally said to Min and Taro, his mushrooms pulsing with renewed determination, "I guess it's time to learn something new." The last monsters fell to the teachers' combined experience. What initially seemed like a crisis was resolved with common military tactics, leaving only carcasses and some holes in the ground as evidence. "Very well," Wei gathered the younger students while other teachers inspected the damage. "Normally this is explained in battle class in a few years, but since you've had an unexpected direct encounter with abyssal beasts, we'll advance this lesson." He cleared his throat, preparing for one of his extensive explanations. Wei observed the group of young students, noting with discomfort the presence of a certain student he normally didn't have to face in his classes. During the last few months, he had grown accustomed to freely mocking the absurd fungus theories when the boy wasn't present. Now he would have to teach with him there. "As you can see," he continued with some stiffness, "abyssal beasts are fundamentally different from the normal creatures we find in the mines or outskirts." He stopped instinctively, waiting for the inevitable correction. When Ren only observed attentively with what seemed genuine interest, Wei found himself losing his train of thought. "Normally these attacks," Wei cleared his throat, uncomfortable with Ren's silent attention. These attacks occur from the great abyss in the city outskirts. Taro, sitting nearby, smiled seeing Wei's nervousness. During the last month, he had had to endure the professor's constant mockery about the absent fungus's theories. And now, the professor seemed unable to maintain his usual condescending tone. True hordes are much larger, Wei continued, his hand playing nervously with his robe. They can last entire months. He stopped instinctively, his experience with Ren making him wait for the inevitable actually professor. Nothing. The boy kept listening with total attention, showing no signs of wanting to interrupt. This attack was unusually small, Wei tried to recover some of his usual confidence. Though I suppose some might have alternative theories about that. The jab, which would normally provoke laughter in class, fell into uncomfortable silence. The students who had witnessed Wei's behavior during the last month exchanged amused looks. Any questions? Wei looked directly at Ren, almost begging for the familiar confrontation. Your next chapter awaits on Empire. Yes, Professor, Ren raised his hand politely. Could you explain more about the horde cycles? Wei almost choked on his own saliva. Where were the absurd theories, the references no one else knew? True hordes. Wei loosened his robe's collar, visibly sweating, follow a cycle of several years and appear in specific seasons, and require the intervention of the complete army. Another glance at Ren. Was he sick? Had the encounter affected him more than it seemed? Does anyone want to add something? He looked meaningfully at Ren. Comment on any error in my explanation, please. Chapter 106 Tamers progress true hordes. Wei loosened his robe's collar, visibly sweating, follow a cycle of several years and appear in specific seasons. And require the intervention of the complete army. Another glance at Ren. Was he sick? Had the encounter affected him more than it seemed? Does anyone want to add something? He looked meaningfully at Ren. Comment on any error in my explanation. Actually, Ren straightened up, and Wei almost sighed with relief. I'd like to know more about the defensive tactics used against different types of abyssals. Several students laughed discreetly at seeing the expression of total bewilderment on Wei's face. Well, tactics against Acerus monsters like those are just about finding the weakness by trying multiple options, and this isn't normal, murmured Wei, passing a hand across his forehead. Are you feeling well? Why do you ask, Professor? Ren tilted his head innocently. Because you seemed like someone who always had something to say, Wei finally exploded. Have you learned your lesson and become a new person in these months? Oh, Ren smiled. It's just that I don't know anything about this, Professor. My mushrooms don't have information about abyssal beasts. Your mushrooms don't know anything, Wei blinked in confusion. No, sir, that's why I'm listening. Although, and here the mushrooms in his hair pulsed, according to what Taro has told me about your cultivation classes, you're still wrong about many things. Wei's face went through several shades of red in rapid succession. I thought you had changed YOUR. He began but stopped, breathing deeply. You know what I prefer when you don't know anything. Let's continue with the lesson about what you do want to learn. And I hope you remember that soon you'll only have less than half the semester left to fulfill your word in our bet. Of course, Professor, Ren nodded seriously. Though about the cultivation method you mentioned to Taro last week. No, enough. Wei raised his hands in defeat while the students burst into laughter. 10 points less for existing. The mushrooms in Ren's hair pulsed to the rhythm of laughter while Wei tried to regain control of the impromptu class, muttering something about thinking he had changed and returning his pity. The day of the second exploration is near, but it's not the only thing happening soon. Well, Liu observed while Taro absorbed another processed crystal. Do you feel closer to becoming a living tunnel yet? Don't be like that, Min laughed. Clearly Ren is transforming him into a deep assassin. Can't you see how his mouth is lengthening and his shell glows differently? Taro almost choked while dealing with the crystal absorption. Don't joke while I'm cultivating, idiots. The mushrooms in Ren's hair pulsed with amusement while he continued absorbing the next crystal for his own cultivation. Though Min moved closer to examine Taro more carefully. Your mana does flow differently lately. Liu nodded with fake seriousness. And your markings are more defined. Maybe the fungus knows what he's doing after all. Of course I know, Ren smiled while finishing his absorption and storing the saturated tentacle. That's why you two should. No, Min raised his hands defensively. First let's see if Taro survives. Thanks for the vote of confidence, Taro muttered. Hey, you're our brave guinea beetle, Liu patted him on the back. If you survive and evolve like Ren says, we'll be first in line begging for help. And if I don't survive, then we'll be first at your funeral, Min smiled, with flowers and everything. The four laughed, though Taro looked slightly darker as he finished absorbing. Well, I'm off, Liu stood up. Some of us still have to study normal and safe cultivation methods at this hour, and Professor Agatha is just as bad as Wei. Coward, Taro shouted as he left, provoking more laughter. Once alone, Ren, Taro, and Min also prepared to leave while discussing something more serious. Professor Yang's mid-semester evaluation. Min began. We need a strategy, Taro nodded. We're the only team without an offensive beast, and I don't know if I'll have time to rank up. Hope they delay the date more because of the horde problem. Ren studied his companions thoughtfully. The mushrooms in his hair pulsed while analyzing each one's capabilities. We have to use our strengths, he began. Min, your snake has our best attack range. Taro, your beetle is perfect for defense, especially now that your mana flows better. And you have the brightest mushrooms, Min completed with a smile. Also Lin's training, Taro added. True, Ren straightened, and lots of normal beasts knowledge, which means we can use interesting strategies depending on who we face. Well, I'm off to Professor Dorothy. Good luck with Wei and Lin, haha, Min mocked while walking away. Taro clenched his fist. Ren frowned. That lucky one had the calmest teacher of first year. The boys separated to go to their first classes and Ren went to hide from Lin. He failed again. After a brutal training session with Lin, a punishment that had been going on for several days after his escape to the caves, Ren was dragged by Lin to Yang's class for more training. 5 more laps. Yang watched while the students ran around the training field. The mushrooms in Ren's hair pulsed steadily. It wasn't actually so bad since training with Lin had significantly improved his endurance. Min, on the other hand, was breathing heavily beside him. How do you do this 4 times every day? He managed between breaths. Lin is worse lately, Ren smiled, remembering his morning session. When they finally finished, Yang gathered all the students. Well, I have an important announcement. His voice resonated across the field. As you know, you would normally have the gathering trip in the middle of the 4th month of the semester. Would have, Cass, Jin's friend, interrupted. What do you mean by would have? Professor Zhao will be indisposed, Yang continued. Therefore, we'll take advantage of that day to hold a small, friendly mid-semester tournament. Murmurs of discontent spread quickly among the students. But we need those materials. Someone protested from the back. The collection is crucial for generating profits and paying for our cultivation. Ren also felt some disappointment. The collection trip would have been an excellent opportunity to obtain many materials again. Though thinking about it, without Zhao present and the noble kids being targets, it could be more dangerous than last time. Silence. Lin's voice cut through the complaints. To compensate for the loss of the trip, special prizes will be awarded to the teams with the best performance. This immediately caught everyone's attention. The prizes, Yang smiled, will include materials equivalent to what you could have obtained on the trip, possibly more depending on your performance. Now, Lin took out a small box. We'll proceed to draw the matches for the first round. Chapter 107, Tamer's Absence. Zhao's owl manifested completely in his body as he advanced through the silver ring, its wings fusing with the professor's arms to allow him to glide silently between the trees, each movement calculated to minimize detection. A group of 2-headed hyenas hunted below, their black bodies perfectly camouflaged but visible to Zhao's owl eyes under the moonlight. He easily avoided them, though he could defeat them. The noise of battle would attract unwanted attention, and he needed to advance as fast as possible. Further ahead, a nest of winged serpents occupied several treetops. The silver rank 3 creatures intertwined their bodies, creating a living net, their scales gleaming with hypnotic patterns designed to trap flying prey. Zhao descended. Flying in this zone would be suicide. The serpents had the advantage in the air and hunted in groups. A distant roar made him stop. The border with the beginning of the gold ring announced itself with a change in vegetation. The trees here were larger, older, their trunks marked by battles between superior beasts. The roar was probably from a golden fox bear, common in the area ahead. Dangerous territory, he thought while his owl eyes scanned the area. From here on, all beasts are stronger than me. A fox bear dozed in a nearby clearing. Zhao carefully circled around it. A rank gold 1 predator was dangerous for someone of silver rank like him. The ground trembled slightly. A herd of golden turtle trees moved in the distance, their massive bodies regenerating vegetation in their wake. Zhao was thankful they were far away enough. A sharp screech cut through the air. Above, a giant horned crow made its rounds. Zhao pressed himself against a tree trunk, merging with the shadows thanks to his owl's feathers. I'll die before reaching the platinum ring, he thought while continuing to advance with extreme caution. His enhanced senses caught every sound, every movement in the darkness. Upon reaching the platinum ring, alive but exhausted, a clearing opened ahead. Moonlight revealed recent battle marks, fallen trees, disturbed earth, broken plates scattered across the ground. Zhao's owl caught movement. A figure moved among the shadows, its power making the air vibrate around it. Found you, Zhao smiled slightly while preparing for the encounter. He just hoped the news he brought justified the risk of venturing so deep into hostile territory. The figure seemed to sense his presence, turning slowly toward his position. Ignatius observed the city from his office window when he felt the familiar presence approaching. He didn't need to turn to recognize his former student's characteristic power. It's been a while, Director, Prince Julius's voice sounded tired, though I would have preferred to visit under less concerning circumstances. The director turned to find the young noble practically collapsing into one of the seats. Work at the castle must be exhausting, but there was something more in his expression, a fatigue that went beyond the physical. They took their time responding, Ignatius commented while pouring 2 glasses of wine. We took time finding someone who could respond, Julius took the glass with a heavy sigh. The council is divided on how to handle the situation. And your father, the prince laughed without humor. What do you think was his response when I suggested he should have returned already 3 months ago? Ignatius observed the liquid in his glass. Let me guess. I won't abandon my mission for small trifles you can handle. The will of dragons cannot be interrupted by mortal machinations, Julius quoted bitterly. As if Yino weren't literally invading our territory while he searches for. What exactly is he searching for? The director noticed how his former student avoided specifically mentioning the king's mission. Even in private, some secrets were too dangerous to be named. Does the council know Yino is aware of his absence? The council can barely agree on what to have for breakfast, Julius rubbed his temples. Half insist we must reinforce the army at the rift. The other half argue that any sudden movement will only confirm Yino's suspicions. While they discuss, Ignatius set down his glass, Yino advances. Their agents can navigate the abyss now, Julius. They've found a way to use the hordes to their advantage. I know I did read your message first, the prince straightened slightly. And I don't like the rest either. Their experiments with abyssal beasts, their double tamers, and now this about triples. Do you think it's possible? 3 beasts, Julius frowned. A year ago I would have said it's impossible, but Yino, he paused, carefully choosing his words, they're willing to cross lines we wouldn't even consider. Ignatius noticed the subtle emphasis on we. Purity in the bond between tamer and beast was one of Yano's fundamental principles, but how much were principles worth against raw power? Your father believes he'll find the answer in his search, the director commented softly. My father believes many things, Julius finished his glass in one gulp. He believes he can abandon the kingdom indefinitely. He believes his personal power is sufficient deterrent. He believes the dragons will guide him to whatever he's searching for. The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken words. The king's the only platinum-ranked tamer in the kingdom, chasing a legend while his nation teetered on the brink of a war that could end everything. Zhao reached the platinum ring, the prince continued, but father was no longer there. Ignatius nodded while pouring more wine. It wasn't a surprise, the king never stayed long in one place during his searches. Zhao found my brother who father left behind, continued the prince. Though with him we have another gold double in the kingdom, I don't think it will be enough. The director observed his former student. The young noble had matured quickly since his father's obsession began affecting the kingdom's stability. I'm sorry you had to come, but I understand why you couldn't trust this to a message, Ignatius commented, with the abyssals able to emerge anywhere. And I couldn't ignore the situation either, the prince straightened, especially not when my sister and my cousins are here. His eyes narrowed slightly. Leora told me about the incident in a letter, about the Hydra in the mine. Your cousins have maintained excellent vigilance, the director tried to reassure him. Their unexpected, dangerous encounter was something. Chapter 108, Taming conjectures. His eyes narrowed slightly. Leora told me about the incident in a letter, about the Hydra in the mine. Your cousins have maintained excellent vigilance, the director tried to reassure him. Their unexpected, dangerous encounter was something. I don't blame you, director, the prince interrupted. I know those 3 always getting into trouble, so I need to increase their security. The academy is a target, Ignatius agreed. The agent's attack made that clear. The academy has always been a target, Julius poured himself more wine. It's the nest that increases our kingdom's power and home to perfect hostages in the enemy's eyes. They have spies here, the director added, good spies. The prince nodded slowly. I know, more guards, yes, the prince nodded. But common guards would draw attention. I need to increase the number of handmaidens with additional training. The kind of handmaidens that only you can discreetly enroll. Ignatius accepted the request with a simple nod, and the informants, they're everywhere, the prince rubbed his temples. Every noble, every counselor, all have their own agendas and with father absent. He paused, carefully choosing his next words. Platinum rank used to be our last bastion of security, but neither I nor any of my siblings managed to match father's cultivation. Something was missing, and if what you say about the abyssals is true, it is, Ignatius confirmed. The agent made it very clear after fleeing, they have a way to navigate the depths using the hordes themselves. If Yino tries something with that while father is absent, the word absent carried the weight of years of frustration. The king, the only platinum tamer, chasing legends while his kingdom teetered on the edge of crisis, how much longer? Until he returns, the prince laughed without humor. Does even he know? Let's talk about something more interesting. Leora told me something about her adventure in the mines that coincidentally resonates with something Zhao mentioned. Han's spider is problematic. Min traced patterns in the air with his finger while his snake coiled nervously around his neck. Those hexagons aren't just decorative. Ren nodded while his mushrooms pulsed, analyzing the available information. It can create traps and barriers too, not as strong as Taro's shell but more versatile. And Sora has good speed with her deer, Taro added. The horns in her hair aren't just for looking pretty either. At least Jun's monkey is more straightforward, Min sighed. Enhanced strength, nothing complicated. Ren's mushrooms pulsed while considering their options. If Taro had started his cultivation at the beginning of the semester, they would now be planning tactics with his evolution in mind. But there was no point in lamenting. We'll have to work with what we have. Ren stood to draw some formations in the air. Min, your snake has the best range if we can keep Han busy and you take down his webs. And Jun always attacks directly, Min added. If we could use that against him. A knock on the door interrupted their planning. The three exchanged confused looks. It was late for visits and Liu generally didn't knock to enter. Ren approached the door, the mushrooms in his hair pulsing with curiosity. When he opened it, the welcome words died in his throat. Director Ignatius was there, his phoenix manifesting in a subtle golden glow, and beside him. Prince Julius, heir to the throne, observed Ren with intense interest. His beast, a Killin, created golden patterns that flowed under his skin like liquid gold. Young Ren, the director kept his voice neutral. We apologize for the hour, but we need to discuss something important. Min and Taro stood up so fast they almost tripped over each other. May we come in? The prince smiled slightly at their reaction. Of course, Ren stepped aside, his mind racing with possibilities. Relax, the director noticed their nervousness. Just. Actually, the prince interrupted softly, we're here about something that has intrigued me quite a bit. His eyes fixed on the mushrooms pulsing in Ren's hair. Something about unconventional methods and unexpected knowledge. Taro and Min exchanged worried looks. How much did they know about the cultivation experiments? The director mentioned something Professor Wei reported. An interesting bet, continued the prince while examining the papers with battle formations on the table, about evolution and traditional methods. The mushrooms pulsed faster. Ren could feel the weight of the prince's gaze, evaluating, measuring. Though that's not all, Julius smiled. I've also heard fascinating stories about a certain student who seems to understand beasts better than some teachers. The director remained silent, observing the interaction with an indecipherable expression. And I wonder, the prince sat casually in one of the chairs, his Killin manifesting more completely, what other secrets might you know? Moments before, Zhao and Leora. The director observed the prince as they walked through the academy's empty hallways. It's curious that both specifically mentioned this student. Yes, Julius smiled slightly. Zhao spoke of a boy who seemed to have unusual knowledge about beasts, specifically mentioned that his knowledge during the exploration was too precise. And Leora noticed something similar, Ignatius nodded. Though she focused more on how the boy seemed very confident while exploring. As if he knew what to expect, the prince stopped, his Killin partially manifesting, or as if he had detected something others couldn't see. The director considered the implications. You think it wasn't coincidence that he was in the cave that day? Zhao said the boy appeared exactly when needed, Julius continued. And when my cousin was following him, coincidentally, that's the same place where the agent appeared. His eyes gleamed while his second beast created crystalline patterns on his arms. My earth beast can track underground movements. I came primarily to search for the mercenary if he's still nearby. But you also want to know why a student with the supposedly worst beast seems to have such deep understanding of the depths, Ignatius completed the thought. Exactly, the prince nodded. A common spore that somehow guided my cousin exactly toward an infiltrated agent. A student who, according to Wei, is challenging all established knowledge about cultivation. Wei tends to exaggerate, the director smiled, especially when it comes to this particular student. But he's not completely wrong, is he? Julius arched an eyebrow. Chapter 109, Taming Conjectures 2. Wei tends to exaggerate, the director smiled. especially when it comes to this particular student. But he's not completely wrong, is he? Julius arched an eyebrow. Wei talks a lot but doesn't lie when. And just when Yino finds a way to use the abyss against us, continued the prince, such a student appears. You suspect a boy with a mushroom too? The director smiled. Not necessarily. Julius smiled too. Rather, I'm intrigued. Zhao mentioned something specific about how he was too clever. They stopped in front of the dormitory door. Ready to speak directly with our mysterious student, Julius smiled while raising his hand to knock. So, the prince observed the room with apparent casualness. Do you enjoy spending time in the mines? Min and Taro had withdrawn after a signal from the director, leaving Ren alone with his important visitors. It's a good way to obtain resources, Your Highness, Ren responded carefully, measuring each word. The guards say you're quite successful at finding crystals, Julius continued. For someone with a spore, it's unusual. I just follow basic patterns, Ren maintained his neutral tone. Anyone can learn them. The prince smiled slightly. Like the patterns you followed during the exploration with Zhao, Ren felt a pang of nervousness but kept his expression calm. Professor Zhao guided us that day, I just followed his instructions. Curious, Julius tilted his head. He remembers the situation differently. Something about a boy escaping his famous vigilance. The director remained silent, observing the exchange like he would a chess match. I think, pardon, why, Your Highness, Ren chose his words carefully, I think Professor Zhao is being too generous. He probably compares me to others because of my weak beast and assumed more than what really happened. And Auxiliary Lin, the prince changed topics abruptly. Why did she decide to train you personally? Read the latest on Empire. Because I have a pathetic beast in combat and I'm a lost cause, Ren smiled with feigned self-deprecation. Or I was, at least. Master Lin has a weakness for lost causes. The director coughed slightly to hide a smile. The answer was perfectly believable. Lin was known for adopting students with unrecognized potential. You were also in the infirmary for mana poisoning that day, Julius continued. How deep did you really go? Not very deep, Ren shrugged. But my spore is so weak that even a little exposure affects me more than others. It was a perfectly reasonable explanation. The prince frowned slightly. Each of Ren's answers was logical, simple, almost too perfect in their normality. But was it really that weak? He didn't have much to compare it to, but it shouldn't be so different in processing mana to others, maybe 50% less. And the cultivation method that bothers Wei so much. Oh, that, Ren seemed to genuinely animate. It's just an idea based on a lucky friend. Professor Wei believes it's impossible, but he stopped as if doubting whether to continue. But, the prince encouraged. But I think sometimes we focus so much on what we believe impossible that we stop seeing what can be, Ren concluded. Julius studied the boy for a long moment. Each answer subtly diverted attention from any special ability, attributing everything to luck, help from others, or simple persistence. It was the kind of humility that could be genuine, or a well-constructed facade. But the prince was the one who had taught the girls to detect lies. You know, the prince finally stood, I need to investigate something in the mines tomorrow. The guards say you seem to be an expert in tunnels and very lucky. Ren blinked, surprised by the change of topic. You want me to guide me, Julius smiled. Since you spend so much time there, you must be able to help me find an intruder's trail. The director carefully observed Ren's reaction. For a moment, something seemed to gleam in the boy's eyes, but it disappeared so quickly it could have been imagination. Oh, of course, why, Your Highness, Ren nodded respectfully, though I don't know how useful a spore can be as a guide. Oh, don't worry about that, the prince headed toward the door. Sometimes the simplest beasts surprise us, don't they, director? Ignatius nodded slightly, noticing how the mushrooms in Ren's hair pulsed faster than ever. The prince observed Ren while they descended through the tunnels. The boy's answers in the dormitory had been careful, measured, and several of them were definitely false. There was something in the way his eyes moved when answering about the exploration, in how his voice subtly changed when talking about the depths. Small details others might overlook, but for someone who had trained Luna, Leora, and Larissa in the art of detecting lies were clear as day. The mushrooms in Ren's hair illuminated the way with a soft glow. Well, the prince commented casually, at least now I see one small advantage you have over your companions. That light must be useful down here. Do your mushrooms have any other interesting advantages? It's just light, Your Highness, Ren responded while guiding the way. Not really a big deal. The prince noticed the slight tension in his shoulders, the subtle change in his tone. Another lie. Do you know anything about the intruder who attacked the academy? He asked abruptly, watching Ren's reaction. Just what I heard afterward, Ren responded, and this time his voice carried the ring of truth. That he was someone dangerous from Yino. Interesting, thought the prince, so he didn't see him personally then. And can you repeat to me what you were doing that day in the mines? Looking for crystals, as always, the response was too quick, too rehearsed. The prince studied the boy while they continued descending. He didn't seem like a spy, his lies were too specific, too focused on hiding something particular instead of the kind of general deception an infiltrator would use. Tell me, he stopped at a tunnel crossing, do you notice anything unusual, anything different from what you're used to? Ren visibly hesitated, the mushrooms in his hair pulsed while his eyes scanned the walls. Numbered, not really, the prince smiled, it was the most obvious lie yet. You know, my cousin told me something about you and how you understood her special ability, but... His voice softened, I was the one who taught Luna to detect lies. It's a subtle art, the small changes in voice, the tension in certain muscles, the way the eyes move. And above all, the bodily flow of mana. Ren froze, the mushrooms in his hair pulsing erratically. And you, young Ren, have been lying quite a bit, not about everything but definitely about important things. Chapter 110, Guide Tamer Ren Patender. You know, my cousin told me something about you and how you understood her special ability, but... His voice softened, I was the one who taught Luna to detect lies. It's a subtle art, the small changes in voice, the tension in certain muscles, the way the eyes move. And above all, the bodily flow of mana. Ren froze, the mushrooms in his hair pulsing erratically. And you, young Ren, have been lying quite a bit. Not about everything, but definitely about important things. Silence filled the tunnel while Ren processed this revelation. You're not a spy, the prince continued. Your lies are too specific for that. You're protecting something, hiding something you can do or see. The mushrooms pulsed more intensely, as if responding to their bearer's tension. Please, Julius softened his tone further, tell me what you really see down here, what your mushrooms with more than just light are showing you. Ren remained silent for several seconds, clearly debating with himself. The mushrooms pulsed once more before Ren finally spoke. The patterns, he began hesitantly. I can see patterns in the mana, in the walls, in the beasts, in how the energy flows. The prince observed how the boy seemed to relax slightly upon finally telling the truth. Although that was an ability several beasts had, like his Killen or those of his cousins or siblings, he had never heard of a spore providing it. And it definitely wasn't enough to explain Zhao's exaggerations. Continue, he encouraged gently. It's like clues, Ren gestured toward the walls. I can see where crystals form, where beasts have left marks, which tunnels are safe and which aren't. His mushrooms pulsed with more confidence as he continued explaining, and since the attack, there are new patterns, marks I hadn't seen before, as if something had altered the natural flow of mana in the depths. The prince listened attentively, noting how each word now carried the unmistakable weight of truth. The supposedly useless spore had turned out much more interesting than anyone could have imagined, or was Ren's spore different to others? But it's strange, Ren frowned, his mushrooms glowing more intensely while he approached to examine a crystalline vein. The mana flow is different, as if something had pushed it out of its natural course. He moved to another section of the wall, his fingers tracing lines invisible to others. Do you see these crystal formations? He pointed to patterns that seemed random to the prince. Normally, they grow following the natural mana lines, but here. He paused, searching for the right words. It's as if something had forced them to grow in another direction. The prince observed with renewed interest as Ren continued his analysis. Enjoy new chapters from Empire the Abyssals, Ren murmured, more to himself than his companion. When they emerged, it must have been like opening a floodgate. A vein of their energy extended up to here. His mushrooms pulsed more rapidly while following the trail of alterations. But it's receding, he continued, noticing how the patterns began normalizing in certain areas. The natural flow is pushing back, reclaiming its territory. Like a river returning to its course, the prince could see it too, but played along trying to understand more about the boy. More like, Ren searched for a better analogy. Like when you mix water with oil, at first they blend, but gradually each returns to its natural place. The mushrooms detected something else, a subtle fluctuation in the patterns. Although, Ren stopped studying a particular section more carefully. There are areas where the abyssal energy seems to have settled, as if it had found points where it can remain stable. The prince observed how the boy moved through the tunnel with a confidence that completely contradicted the image of someone with the worst beast. Each movement seemed guided by information invisible to others. He showed no fear of possible old wormholes that could make him fall, seeming to walk as if through his own home. That's why some crystals are changing color, Ren pointed to formations. They're absorbing the residual energy from the abyssals. He stopped before a particular crack, the mushrooms in his hair pulsing with a slower, more cautious rhythm. Here, he murmured, this point is still active like it's an anchor for the abyssal energy. The prince approached to examine the crack. To him it looked like any other, but the certainty in Ren's voice was undeniable, so he scraped with his beast's claws and found violet crystals. The normal mana flow is avoiding this area, Ren continued explaining, like a river circling a rock. But the abyssal energy, he stopped considering his next words. Yes, the prince encouraged him to continue. It's as if it left a mark, Ren frowned, a point where its influence remains even while the rest fades. The mushrooms pulsed one final time, detecting something deeper, more worrying, and I don't think it's the only point like this. It must continue downward. This way, Ren pointed to another descending tunnel while his mushrooms pulsed. The abyssal energy vein is stronger in this direction. They passed a group of guards who respectfully saluted the prince. As they descended, the marks on the walls became more pronounced. Your Highness, Ren stopped abruptly. This was his chance to escape from the prince. He had guided him far enough in the right direction. We're passing 150 meters, with my spore the mana poisoning. Is that what really worries you? The prince interrupted softly. Or is there another reason you want to stop here? The mushrooms in Ren's hair pulsed erratically. I don't understand what you mean by. That day, Julius looked at him directly. When they found the mercenary, did you also stop at 150 meters? Of course I lie, the prince took a step toward him. Like the other lies about your limits. How far did you really go down, Ren? Silence filled the tunnel while Ren considered his options. The mushrooms in his hair pulsed faster and faster. 150 meters isn't your limit, Julius continued pressing. Not even close. I can see it in your face every time you mention that depth. Ren took a step back, but the prince advanced another. Eyes might have gone a bit deeper that day. How much is a bit deeper? Maybe 200 meters. The prince smiled without humor. You're still lying, 300 meters perhaps. Ren's mushrooms practically glowed at the mention of that depth. It was all the confirmation Julius needed. 300 meters, the prince whistled softly, with a spore. I won't ask how you avoided the deep assassins or the worms, but it's impressive. And what were you looking for so deep? Nothing in particular, just... Ren, Julius interrupted again. We've established that I can detect your lies. Why don't you tell me the truth? There was another moment of tense silence before Ren finally sighed. There was a mana vein, he admitted, a special one that I wanted to use for my cultivation, and that's when you found the Hydra. Ren nodded slowly. Show me. What? Chapter 111, Guide Tamer Ren Patender 2 Ren, Julius interrupted again. We've established that I can detect your lies. Why don't you tell me the truth? There was another moment of tense silence before Ren finally sighed. There was a mana vein, he admitted, a special one that I wanted to use for my cultivation, and that's when you found the Hydra. Ren nodded slowly. Show me. What? The prince opened his robe, revealing dozens of small vials secured inside. Medicine for mana poisoning, enough to keep you safe even at that depth. Ren's mushrooms pulsed while considering his situation. Well, the prince arched an eyebrow. Will you show me the way, or would you prefer we continue this game of half-truths? Ren looked at the medicine vials, then at the prince, and finally toward the depths he knew so well. The vein is relatively easy to find, he began slowly. Perfect, Julius took out a vial and offered it to Ren. Guide me. The mushrooms in Ren's hair pulsed restlessly while he guided the prince through the tunnels. His mind kept circling back to the mantis core he had left dangling and accumulating mana. It shouldn't be an egg yet, he thought as they descended. According to the knowledge. Mana levels indicate it still needs almost 20,000 points to complete the process. But the prince was the problem. How would he explain that? The mushrooms detected a subtle change in mana patterns. Everything all right? The prince noticed his hesitation. Yes, your highness, Ren responded automatically. Just verifying the safest path. Although maybe, his mushrooms pulsed while considering the possibilities. It wasn't such a bad situation if he could use the prince and his potions to collect the core already. Then the mana points saved in medicine and preparations could be injected into the core to finish the process, and the prince observed him with interest while they navigated another tunnel crossing. Ren could feel the weight of his evaluating gaze. The core should still be safe. With no monsters having hatching behavior at this depth, the core should maintain its nature, but since that Hydra had made it up here, maybe it wasn't a bad idea to collect a bit earlier if possible. Suddenly, the mushrooms pulsed with alarm. Ren stopped dead. What's wrong? Julius asked, his hand transforming into claws instantly. A deep assassin, Ren whispered, moving through the side tunnel. If we wait a moment, it will pass without. The prince stepped forward, an enigmatic smile on his lips. No need to wait. A golden light emanated from his body while he manifested his beast. The creature that materialized was something Ren had only seen in books. a sleek and elegant body covered in scales that shone like polished jade. Its horn, long and spiral, emitted an aura of pure power that made Ren's mushrooms reduce their glow. A Killen. The sacred beast's aura expanded through the tunnel. Ren felt how the assassin, a creature that normally feared nothing at this depth, retreated in panic. Its presence quickly vanished in the distance, fleeing from the power that had just manifested. Assassins are cowardly creatures, the prince commented casually while his Killen remained manifested, its light illuminating the tunnel with a glow greater than Ren's mushrooms. So sure of their position in the food chain. Until they find something truly superior. Ren couldn't take his eyes off the sacred beast, the mushrooms trying to process the unique mana patterns emanating from the Killen, but most information concerning a gold beast was beyond their knowledge. Perhaps the assassin wasn't cowardly. Maybe it was intelligent. Ren stopped, searching for the right words. First time seeing one, Julius smiled at his amazement. Not surprising, Killen are the symbol of royalty. The mana patterns around the Killen were different from anything Ren had seen before. Let's continue, the prince indicated, his Killen illuminating the way with its golden radiance. I suspect we won't have any more interruptions. Beasts tend to avoid me. Find exclusive stories on Empire. Ren nodded, his mind divided between awe at the beast and concern for his core. At least now they would have a clear path to the vein, though that meant he wouldn't have excuses to delay the inevitable. I just hope, he thought as they resumed their descent, the prince is more interested in the mana vein flow than in any unusual core we might find. What do you know about crown lizards from the western desert? Julius asked as they advanced, his Killen still illuminating the way. Oh, they're fascinating, Ren's mushrooms pulsed, giving him the knowledge enthusiastically. They have a unique life cycle. They run in circles that they use to create hot air currents. The currents trap insects that. The prince observed how the boy described with micrometric precision the habits of a beast he had probably never seen. It was the kind of knowledge you'd only find in specialized texts. He asked more about iron, bronze, and silver beasts until. And the celestial spirit flames of the eastern islands. Liu told me he read a book recently that says they glow with their own light and can levitate using mana currents, although. Ren hesitated for some reason. They actually don't use currents, they project themselves wherever the mana is because they're pure energy. Interesting, thought Julius. Extensive knowledge but with some weird confusions. The prince had thought Ren was wrong when in reality the book Liu had read was the one that was wrong and the boy's correction was the truth. The prince, of course, believed the version from the book he had also read. Zhao had mentioned something similar, how during the expedition Ren seemed to know too much about some things, but added small outlandish things to the general knowledge. What about phoenixes? Ren seemed to shrink slightly. I only know the basics. Gold rank or higher beasts very powerful use fire and platinum wyverns. Sorry, your highness, I know even less about those. Julius frowned. The contrast was marked, encyclopedic knowledge of common and rare beasts of silver rank and below, but almost nothing about the more powerful gold ones and above. As if someone had poured hundreds of books of lower rank creatures into his head, thought the prince. But that doesn't make sense. Records showed Ren came from a modest family. Limited wealth wouldn't allow the kind of library needed to accumulate such knowledge. And although the academy had an impressive library, the boy hadn't been there even half a year. Was he really some kind of genius or? Chapter 112, Guide Tamer Ren Patender 3, as if someone had poured hundreds of books into his head, thought the prince. But that doesn't make sense. Records showed that Ren came from a modest family. Limited wealth wouldn't allow the kind of library needed to accumulate such knowledge. And although the academy had an impressive library, the boy hadn't been there even half a year. Was he really some kind of genius, or? Tell me about your spore, Julius said casually. The mushrooms in Ren's hair pulsed with nervousness. It was the question he had been dreading since this journey began, but then something changed in his expression. You know what, your highness, it's not fair, Ren stopped, turning toward the prince. You ask all the questions. How about I ask something too? Julius blinked, surprised by the sudden change in attitude, then smiled, amused by the boldness. About my beasts, I suppose. Exactly, Ren's mushrooms pulsed with genuine enthusiasm. What's it like having a Killen, and what's your other beast? The prince laughed softly. The boy was skilled at diverting attention, but perhaps if he played along it would make him relax. The Killen is the beast of royalty, as I already told you, he began, watching Ren's reaction. My father is the only one who has a platinum rank 1, an impressive sight truly. And your siblings? None have managed to take it beyond gold 3, Julius sighed. I myself stalled at gold 2, the cultivation, failed after that and my Killen matured. Ren's mushrooms pulsed with curiosity. Why? There's something different in my father's method, the prince shrugged. Some detail we haven't been able to replicate. He insists it's simple, but sometimes the simplest things are the hardest to see, Ren commented, surprising Julius with the depth of the observation. True. As for my other beast, continued the prince, it's a rank gold 1 elemental wolverine. The ones that can adapt to different elements. Exactly, it's popular among nobility too. I have it attuned to the earth element, though changing its neutral element in juvenile stage isn't difficult. Most of my sisters prefer water, my brother's fire. He stopped, a nostalgic smile on his lips. A shame both beasts are already mature. The decisions we make when young follow us all our life. Ren's mushrooms pulsed more intensely. How do you manage to have two beasts? Julius smiled enigmatically. Sorry, but that's a royal family secret. If I told you, I'd have to kill you. Ren froze for a moment until he noticed the gleam of amusement in the prince's eyes. Just kidding, Julius laughed at Ren's expression. The method for obtaining two beasts isn't really a deadly secret, it's just impractical to replicate on a large scale. The mushrooms in Ren's hair pulsed with curiosity while they continued advancing. Unlike Yino, we don't have easy methods to cultivate double tamers, the prince continued, his expression becoming more serious. According to our recent visitor, they've found a way to make the process quite replicable. They're even experimenting with 3 beasts. And is it true? Seems so. But they have their own limitations, Julius nodded. Their abyssal beasts seem to have the limit at silver 3. No matter how many they accumulate, if that's the limit in their individual power. Ren processed this information while his mushrooms analyzed the tunnel ahead. The mana pressure was gradually increasing, making it a bit difficult to advance, but he could still endure about 14 minutes more without major problems. Wouldn't it be better then? He began without thinking too much, to share the method with Yano's people. If Yino can give 2 or 3 beasts to their tamers, keeping the method secret seems like a disadvantage for the kingdom. Julius stopped, observing Ren with renewed interest. It's more complicated than that, he finally responded. The method has implications that could affect the kingdom's economy and would be problematic for people to know for various reasons. Ren's mushrooms pulsed while pointing to another tunnel. This one showed signs of recent destruction, though local beasts had begun rebuilding it. The worms and beetles have been working, Ren commented as they passed. They use their secretions to reinforce damaged tunnels. It's fascinating how they incorporate crystal fragments into. How do you know so much about the depths? Julius interrupted. Not just the tunnels and beasts, but their behaviors, their habits. There are many books in the academy, Ren responded automatically. You read that much? In the library of the... You haven't been at the academy that long, the prince cut him off softly. And your family, besides I feel it's half lies. He stopped, something in Ren's expression had changed. The mushrooms in his hair pulsed with a different rhythm while the tunnel opened into a wider cavern. The air here smelled different, like death. So this is where, Ren whispered. Julius's kiln illuminated the cavern with its radiance, revealing a scene of major destruction. The walls showed marks of battle, and in the center, the Hydra, the prince approached the corpse, or what's left of it. Discover stories with Empire. The beast's massive body had been practically consumed completely, only the hard parts of its armor remaining. Purple crystals sprouted from some of its wounds, creating a grotesque statue that glowed faintly under the kiln's light. The attacker's abyssal energy, I suppose, Ren murmured, his mushrooms pulsing while failing to analyze the patterns. The crystals around the mana, even the way beasts rebuild the tunnels, is strange here. As they skirted the Hydra's corpse, Ren grew bold enough to ask, Your Highness, Ren stopped beside the Hydra's crystallized corpse. Could I collect some parts of the armor? Julius blinked as if the idea hadn't occurred to him. The armor, the diamond scales, Ren explained while his mushrooms analyzed the most valuable sections. In the market, even a single Hydra scale can be worth. The prince had probably never needed to worry about the market value of anything, so he hadn't thought about it. Of course, Julius smiled, understanding the situation. Take what you can carry, just avoid the parts affected by abyssal energy. Ren's mushrooms pulsed while identifying the best pieces. Some scales here, a tendon fragment there, each piece worth a small fortune. As for the rest, the prince manifested his second beast. The wolverine that emerged was massive. Its fur had an earthy tone, and its body seemed to partially merge with the ground beneath its paws. Crystals and minerals sprouted from its skin like natural armor. Watch, Julius commanded his beast. Chapter 113, Guide Tamer Ren Patender 4. As for the rest. The prince manifested his second beast. The wolverine that emerged was massive. Its fur had an earthy tone, and its body seemed to partially merge with the ground beneath its paws. Crystals and minerals sprouted from its skin like natural armor, each one catching and reflecting the killin's light. "Watch," Julius commanded his beast. The wolverine approached the hydra's corpse and to Ren's surprise began to devour it systematically. But something was weird, the pieces it swallowed seemed to disappear into some kind of internal space. "It has a special cavity," the prince explained upon seeing Ren's expression. "It can store objects without digesting them, quite useful for transporting things, or eliminating evidence." Ren's mushrooms pulsed with fascination while observing the wolverine methodically consume the hydra's remains. When it finished, the beast simply vanished, returning to Julius's body. Are the remains inside you now?" Ren couldn't help but ask. "In a way," Julius smiled. "Though I prefer not to think too much about the details. Do you have everything you need?" Ren nodded, carefully securing his bounty. A beast that can store objects, he thought as they advanced, would be really convenient. His mushrooms pulsed, reminding him there were more immediate things to worry about. "Now," the prince resumed their path, "since I've answered your questions, how about you tell me more about that spore of yours?" "Well," Ren began but stopped abruptly. His mushrooms pulsed with a different rhythm. "What's wrong?" "We're close," Ren pointed ahead. "The vein is just past that bridge turn." Julius noticed the topic change but decided not to press. For now, the boy was more skilled than he appeared at handling difficult conversations. Before Julius could ask more, his mushrooms pulsed with intensity. "It's here," he pointed to the large chamber as they exited the tunnel. The vein revealed itself as a crystal bowl that glowed with pure energy. The mana pressure was considerable. For someone with a common spore, it should be almost unbearable to approach the flow. Ren knew he still had about 10 minutes before really needing the medicine, but his mushrooms pulsed erratically while he pretended to stagger slightly. "The mana," he murmured, taking out the vial the prince had given him. "At this depth." Julius observed how Ren drank the medicine, his eyes studying every movement. The boy seemed genuinely affected by the pressure, which was consistent with someone bearing a simple spore. "And yet, better?" he asked while Ren recovered his balance. "Yes, thank you," Ren nodded, hoping his performance was convincing. If the prince thought he could barely handle himself at this depth, maybe he wouldn't insist on exploring further down, filling him to the brim with potions. "The vein is impressive. It's rare to have them at this low depth." Julius approached to examine the crystals. "Is this what you were looking for that day?" "Something like that," Ren responded vaguely, his mushrooms pulsing while searching for the mantis core. The dangling core should be here, oscillating right where he had left it, but disappeared, he thought with a touch of sadness. At least he still had the Hydra egg as backup. "Interesting location," Julius commented while descending to examine the geyser more closely. "You were right, it's not particularly inaccessible, though with recent problems, it's not worth the effort to come here to create more random eggs for the kingdom." Ren completed the thought, his mushrooms pulsed while considering something. "Is that how you make the random colored eggs using the veins?" Julius stopped mid-inspection. He turned slowly toward Ren, a smile forming on his lips. "You know, I really should kill you for asking such perceptive questions." Julius observed the boy. His knowledge was too precise to be coincidence, too specific to be just reading. But it also didn't fit the profile of a spy. Perhaps it was even worse. It was as if Ren was a mystery that grew deeper with each answer. "Every time I learn more," thought Julius, "I understand this boy less and less." Ren tensed for a moment before noticing the gleam of amusement in the prince's eyes. "I realize," Julius continued, "that it's quite difficult to hide things from you. You've probably already deduced most of it." He approached to examine a particular crystal formation. "Yes, the kingdom has a massive mana vein. That's where we get the eggs we distribute." Enjoy new chapters from Empire. Ren's mushrooms pulsed with interest while absorbing this confirmation of his suspicions. "The problem," Julius sighed, "is that we can barely control what type of eggs form there. Most methods for obtaining specific beasts require a dragon brooding or at least a platinum rank beast, and we don't have." He stopped, but Ren had already caught the implication. The king's platinum killin probably had played a crucial role in producing eggs for the royal family, but that wasn't a detail that needed mentioning. Too late to hide it, though it was obvious to me. "This vein is too small," Julius continued, apparently oblivious to Ren's thoughts. "There is a method to revive cores using concentrated mana, but here we could barely produce one egg per month. Maybe one every 10 days if we found a creature willing to brood, but few could live at this depth. Oh, the Hydra perhaps, but it's not worth the effort, right?" Ren left the question hanging so the prince wouldn't follow the conversation thread that would lead back to why the Hydra had followed him up. "Exactly. The gold-rank beasts that can survive here can't brood or aren't strong enough to make the effort worthwhile." Ren's mushrooms pulsed while looking around. Anyway, Julius straightened, I'll discuss the possibilities with the director, though small a pure mana vein always has its uses. Ren nodded, his mind working quickly. If the kingdom had a massive vein somewhere, it must be in. Don't bother trying to find the big one we have, Julius smiled, reading his expression. The main vein is very well protected, though, he added with a wink, I have the feeling you'd find a way to get there if you really tried. Ren's mushrooms pulsed with what might have been embarrassment or amusement. After all, the prince continued, you seem to have a special talent for finding trouble and things that are supposed to be well hidden. If you knew I already know where it is, maybe you would actually kill me. Thought Ren Chapter 114 Guide Tamer Ren Patenter 5. While Julius examined the vein, Ren's mushrooms pulsed, detecting something unusual. A different mana pattern emanated from a nearby crack at the edge of the bowl. Ren descended the slope as far from the pure mana geyser as possible and approached cautiously, taking advantage of the prince being distracted with his inspection at the bowl's center. The crack was narrow, barely visible in the penumbra, but there. His heart skipped a beat. 2 cores rested in the hollow. One still had the weaver's thread tied to it, his mantis core, and next to it another core that hadn't been there before. The mushrooms pulsed with excitement while Ren extended his hand toward the crack, if he could reach them quickly and hide them. What are you doing? Ren jumped, his hand freezing midway. Julius was right behind him, his eyes fixed on the cores in the crack. So this is it, the prince murmured, leaning to better examine the discovery. You found a way to generate eggs. Ren's initial panic mixed with resignation. Something like that, he responded carefully. I have a bug egg. Ren's mushrooms pulsed nervously. With the prince's ability to detect lies, there was no point trying to deny it. Julius's eyes momentarily gleamed while verifying the truth in those words. I see. Experimenting with basic eggs to sell in the market, though they're not very popular. But with your family's situation, I can understand a bit. The prince's assumption was convenient for Ren, but there was something more in his expression, as if he were connecting invisible dots. Then something seemed to occur to the prince. His expression changed subtly. You know, Ren, Julius spoke slowly, his tone changing too. I wonder, were you the one who caused the incident with the Hydra? The mushrooms in Ren's hair pulsed erratically while the boy tried to find a way to respond that wasn't a direct lie. All right, he said softly. That it followed you by bad luck when you came doesn't imply you're the culprit I'm looking for. Would it be who brought it here or who took it up? The prince noticed his hesitation. No, let me rephrase that, Julius raised a hand. Did you bring the Hydra here for brooding a core or for some other reason? No, Ren responded immediately, grateful to be able to tell the absolute truth in this. Experience more tales on Empire. The prince kept his eyes fixed on Ren for several seconds, studying every micro-expression, his Kilin illuminating the scene with its golden radiance. Interesting, he finally murmured. That last response was completely true. He approached the crack, observing the cores more carefully. I wonder what other secrets you keep about this whole incident, because I'm starting to suspect you know much more than you appear to. Ren's mushrooms pulsed with concern. You know what's most fascinating? Julius continued, his voice casual but his eyes sharp. That a student with the supposedly worst beast has managed not only to survive at these depths but also experiment with cores and eggs. That requires knowledge not found in common books. He turned to fully face Ren. The question is, where does that knowledge come from? And what other secrets are you hiding? How much could he reveal without getting into more trouble? Take your cores, Julius smiled slightly. If you don't want to share your specific method, you don't have to. Relief flooded Ren while he carefully collected both cores from the crack. Upon closer examination, he noticed the second one also seemed to be from a Hydra. It could be useful for something different if he applied his method, though he would need parts of the beast he wanted to get. Julius had moved to another sector of the cavern, his eyes fixed on the ground. There are traces here, murmured the prince. From the agent, probably. He turned to Ren. What do you think? Should I follow the receding abyssal corruption trail or these footprints? Ren considered the question while his mushrooms analyzed both patterns. Not the corruption trail, he finally responded. If I were the intruder, I'd think that's good bait. Besides, he thought to himself, this second core must be related to the intruder. It wasn't here before, so maybe he still has something to do with the Hydra egg. You're probably right, Julius nodded. You should return for now. I agree, Ren responded, grateful for the suggestion. The prince took out 3 more medicine vials and offered them to Ren with a wink, for when you think of doing more interesting things. Ren took the vials, hesitating a moment before making a decision. The prince had treated him well. It seemed his suspicions toward Ren were simple protocol, so he could return some kindness. Your Highness, There's something that might be useful for the kingdom. The mushrooms in his hair pulsed while organizing his thoughts. Deep killers don't brood at this depth, but he paused, making sure to explain correctly. If you have a part of the monster, a carcass, or any other part, you can put it surrounding the core, along with 10 days of the specific bug cultivation in this case. And Ren proceeded to show him the correct monocirculation pattern in the core. It was a complex symbol that followed the reasoning of the creature's monocirculation in life. You can revive the egg without needing its own species to brood it. Julius observed him with surprise, clearly processing the implications. But the pattern's complexity was too ridiculous to be a coincidence. When could people simply happen upon such a discovery by chance? How? Suddenly an amused smile crossed his face. Wolverine, he called, manifesting his massive beast. I need you to shake yourself. And scratch a lot. The beast seemed confused for a moment but obeyed. It began an intense session of scratching and shaking, spreading hair and mineral fragments across the ground. Are these useful to you? Julius asked, pointing to the remains. I can at least sell them, Ren responded, surprised by the gesture. Thank you. Good, the prince smiled. Wolverine, could you take our friend up? Before Ren could protest, Julius had lifted him and placed him on the beast's back. The mushrooms in his hair barely had time to pulse with surprise before the Wolverine moved. A minute later, Ren blinked under the light at the cave entrance, still processing what had just happened. Chapter 115, Taming Pursuit. The prince's Wolverine returned after leaving Ren at the cave entrance. Julius began his descent, following the trail the mercenary had left. In the silver zone at 500 meters depth, the greater deep assassins were the first to appear. Where their lesser cousins were solitary predators, these hunted in pairs. Julius had to use his Killen several times to force these creatures to reveal their presence. No wonder some explorers don't return from these depths. Their more developed bodies gleamed with a metallic tone, more suited to the new environment as they moved between shadows, their forms blending perfectly with the crystalline formations around them. Impressive coordination, murmured Julius while observing them communicate through small taps on their partner's front legs. But they still maintained distance from the Killen. Deeper, he found the domains of the superior worms. These beasts had evolved to be larger and still created complete networks of interconnected galleries, but now wider. Natural engineers, he noted. The greater living tunnels, unlike their common versions, could improve tunnels in more complex ways, like adding spikes at certain entrances to damage assassins, turning entire cave sections into traps. Their work showed an intelligence that went beyond mere instinct. Common hydras were very rare at these levels, and if found it was almost at the end of the section, in small groups. Though individually less impressive than the one that had attacked the academy, their teamwork made them equally dangerous. Upon reaching the gold zone, the environment changed drastically. The beasts here weren't just stronger, they had fundamentally different behaviors. The assassins became more crystalline, almost transparent, their strategy shifting more to camouflage and ambush than pursuit. Their bodies seemed to bend light itself, making them nearly invisible until the moment they struck. The worms developed resistant shells. The living tunnels created mobile magical traps. Gold hydras cared for lower-rank hydras, teaching them, protecting them, showing a level of social organization that challenged the common understanding of most beasts. But it was the rock beetles that really added tension to the assassins' more obvious ambushes, their massive forms emerging from seemingly solid walls. Fascinating, he murmured while observing one of these divergent evolutions of the living tunnels. They merged with the walls, these massive insectoids literally appearing as rock, gaining the ability to mold and generate it at will. The power difference is notable, he thought while dodging an attack from an assassin that had jumped from its hiding place. His Wolverine barely managed to deflect the beast's proboscis of the same rank while the Killen attacked from behind. The mercenary's trail became harder to follow. The beasts here were at his level, some would even be stronger soon when he descended further. Each step required more caution, more power. Finally, he reached the border between gold and platinum, the zone where the true abyss began. So this is where you went, he murmured, observing how the abyssal energy trail was lost in the depths. They are using the abyss itself as refuge indeed. The mercenary had escaped him. He had chosen another path and not the abyssal vein but had reached the abyss anyway, but something didn't add up. Damn it! The agent's voice resonated in the vein cave. His scorpion arm glowed, faintly reflecting the geyser while he struck the wall in frustration. It had been a risky plan. Descend to the bottom, create 2 trails, and then return through the abyssal energy vein dragging a new hydra. The days needed to feed the core would be almost covered by the time he returned, and he could wait out the last ones hidden near the entrance. The silver hydra he had captured writhed weakly. It was badly hurt, but once it took mana from the geyser, it would recover and serve to brood the core. If only he could find it. Again, he roared, his mutations expanding from frustration. Again, someone took the damned core. His fingers traced the empty space where the core should be hidden, all the effort. He took the risk of reaching the abyssal vein, climbing back up through the zone that would give him a quick escape route if someone pursued him, letting his beast make a second trail while he hid from the gold rank ones. All had been in vain. The hydra shook again as if mocking his failure. "Don't think this means you'll be saved," murmured the agent while approaching the beast. If he couldn't have the egg, at least he'd get another hydra core before returning. His claws rose, preparing to give the hydra the final blow. After extracting the hydra's core and feeding himself some meat, the mercenary decided it was no longer possible to obtain the egg. He would have to return and deliver at least the hydra core. After all, his employer seemed to have an alternative method, though it would give only a tenth of the reward. He left the vein chamber. The attack came from nowhere. Continue reading stories on Empire. The agent barely managed to dodge, his mutations reacting by instinct. A golden killing claw passed grazing where his head had been a moment before. "Did you think having 2 trails would be enough?" Julius's voice resonated in the cavern. "Didn't you think your pursuer might also have 2 beasts?" The mercenary backed away, cursing internally. His strategy had been solid. Both trails would lead any pursuer toward the abyss. How did he find the trail after he changed his access route from the abyss? Had he returned to the chamber on a hunch? The prince emerged from the shadows, his wolverine manifesting in his body. "One trail for my killin'," Julius smiled, "and another for my nose," the agent completed, his scorpion arm tensing. "I should have considered that an earth tracker could catch my scent from the surface trails. I followed them both," the prince advanced casually. "But you were careless returning here. Do you care so much about this small vein? I want to know why." The agent observed the blocked exit. "Spill everything." Min practically jumped with excitement, trying to feed his curiosity. What did the prince want? "Why did he take you? Did he threaten you?" Liu added, his bat opening its mouth briefly from anxiety. Ren smiled while his mushrooms pulsed softly. "Nothing so dramatic, he just wanted to check some things in the mines." The prince in the mines. Min narrowed his eyes with suspicion. "Well," Ren elaborated a convenient version of events. "Apparently he had heard about my successes finding veins. He wanted to hear about my method while I guided him." And Liu leaned forward. Chapter 116, Taming Nests. "Well," Ren elaborated a convenient version of events. "Apparently he had heard about my successes finding veins. He wanted to hear about my method while I guided him." And Liu leaned forward, and nothing. "I showed him how I used the mushrooms for light. He let me take some remains from the dead hydra and gave me old parts from his beast." End of story. His friends clearly wanted more details, but Ren moved toward his trunk, effectively changing the subject since carefully, he took out the hydra egg and the bug egg, placing them next to the 2 cores he had recovered. Taro, who had been unusually quiet, observed the objects with familiarity. After all, he had helped Ren hide them the day he ended up in the infirmary. "What the hell?" Min approached to examine the objects. "Where did you get those?" "A bit deeper in the caves," Ren responded honestly. "Luckily. I found them along with the cores." Liu studied the cores without much interest. "Why keep cores? They're useless." "The government buys them," Min pointed out, "though they pay a pittance. You can't extract mana from them like a crystal. They can absorb mana, but filling them is a useless waste because they have no practical use." Taro scratched his head. "The bug egg is worth something." "What?" "About 100,000 crystals for being rare." "If you find a buyer," Liu snorted, "people prefer to pay a bit more for a brown egg like the one that gave you your beetle. At least they have the possibility of getting a mole then." Ren's mushrooms pulsed while his friends discussed market value. "If they only knew, but this other egg is what intrigues me." Min pointed to the hydra egg, his eyes shining. "I've never seen anything like it even in the city market." The egg glowed like a diamond, its patterns clearly different from common random eggs. "Doesn't look like a random egg." Liu moved closer. "What beast could it be from? How much do you think it's worth?" "That glow is impressive." "Much more than the bug one, surely," Min nodded. "Some people pay fortunes for unique eggs." Ren let his friends speculate about prices and potential buyers. It was safer if they thought about the objects only in terms of their market value. "Why don't you sell them?" Liu finally asked. "You could get a really good profit. School residence hasn't treated you as badly as we thought after all." "Congratulations, lucky shroom." "I'm waiting for the right moment. Don't tell anybody yet," Ren responded vaguely. The mushrooms in his hair pulsed softly. His friends would never suspect that one of those useless cores would soon become something as valuable as any rare egg in the market. Soon he would have 4 eggs in his hands. Hypothetically, if you could choose, Ren began, what would you prefer? A defensive creature with some attack, an elemental offensive one, or a faster one with utility? Defensive, Taro responded immediately. There's nothing like a good shield. Are you crazy? Min shook his head. Elemental offensive, obviously. The best defense is a good offense. You're both wrong, Liu intervened. Speed and utility, what good is power if you can't reach your target? Ren's mushrooms pulsed with what seemed to be exasperation. Thanks, you're not helping at all. He lay back on his bed, thoughtful. The Wolverine's ability to store things inside was fascinating, and the Mantis's mirrors had already saved his skin more than once. But the Hydra also. Suddenly he stood up, startling his friends. He began emptying his enormous backpack, which seemed to contain his size and materials. What are you doing? Taro asked while Ren piled Hydra plates to one side. Without answering, Ren opened his trunk and took out the carefully stored Mantis plates. With precise movements, he began building small nests using the Mantis plates as a base for one, interweaving the Wolverine's hair and minerals for the other. Min observed, confused. Are you making abstract art? Maybe it's a phase, Liu whispered. Like when Taro tried to make ugly sculptures with earth. Hey, those sculptures were art. They were piles of dirt, Taro. Ren ignored them, completely focused on his task. Suddenly, something seemed to occur to him. He grabbed some of the Hydra plates and headed toward the door. His friends were left staring at the decorative nests and then at the door where Ren had disappeared. Should we? Min began. Worry about his mental health, Liu completed. They looked at each other for a moment. Ren, wait, they shouted in unison, running after him. They found him in the hallway, muttering to himself while examining a Hydra plate against the light. Are you going to tell us what you're doing? Taro asked. Brooding, Ren responded distractedly. Brooding, Min repeated skeptically. Need more materials, Ren elaborated, turning the plate 45 degrees. For what? Liu asked. It's for the nests. The three exchanged looks. You know, Min began slowly, when we said you needed a hobby away from the caves. Well, we didn't mean this, Liu finished. Shouldn't you be practicing for the tournament? Ren asked without stopping examining the plate. Shouldn't you be practicing with us for the tournament instead of? Whatever this is, Taro counterattacked. The mushrooms in Ren's hair pulsed with what could have been amusement. Multitasking. Doesn't multitasking imply doing both things? You're only doing one, Min observed. Ren finally looked at them, a mysterious smile on his face. Don't you have homework to do? The three looked at each other while following Ren until read New Adventures at Empire J. Jesse, Min practically shouted when they saw who Ren was looking for. Why didn't you tell us we were coming to see Jesse? The young evaluator jumped in her seat, dropping several papers. Ah, Ren and company. Ignore them, Ren smiled while his mushrooms pulsed. They're bored and decided to follow me. Hey, Liu protested. We're worried about your mental health, the art with monster parts. Art? Jessie blinked confused while picking up her papers. Oh, are you going to sell me more materials? Just these 5 diamond skin plates. Ren placed the enormous Hydra plates on the counter. Jessie's eyes lit up immediately, her cat ears perking. These are, wait, let me check. She began frantically searching in her manual. The quality is exceptional, she murmured while examining the plates. And the crystallization pattern, oh. And look at this iridescence on the edges. Gold rank, Min, Liu, and Taro watched open-mouthed while Jessie calculated the value. F for the quality and preservation state. Jessie smiled brightly. I can offer you 3 bright bronze crystals for each one, 15 total. 15? The three friends exclaimed in unison. Chapter 117, Taming Nests 2, F for the quality and preservation state. Jessie smiled brightly. I can offer you 3 bright bronze crystals for each one, 15 total. 15? The three friends exclaimed in unison. Seems good, Ren nodded while his mushrooms pulsed with satisfaction. While Jessie prepared the payment, the others couldn't stop staring at the crystals with envy. The lucky bastard had 5 more plates in the room, not to mention the eggs and who knows how much more among his fortunate acquisitions. While his friends were still processing the figure, Ren pulled out a list. I also need some materials, he said casually. Oh, Jessie took the list. What are you looking for? Speed and elemental control runes, Ren began, and these components. Jessie's eyes widened while reading the list. These are unusual combinations. The runes are usually the most expensive parts of cultivation. How much for everything? 10,000 for the speed rune, 15,000 for the elemental control one, and with the materials you want. T30,000, Jessie stuttered, but I could look for more economical alternatives. It's almost exactly the calculation I had, thought Ren. The cultivation materials for the mantis for 10 days are cheap. No more than 500 crystals, 1,000 for the rune guide solution. But the iron wolverine ones are quite expensive, They must be popular among royalty and high-rank nobility. Use my credits should be just enough, Ren said. Credits just enough, the three friends exclaimed in unison. Next stop, Ren announced after saying goodbye to Jesse, the bank. At the bank, Finch was polishing his spectacles when they saw the group enter. Theodore. Finch's high-pitched voice greeted them. Prepare the withdrawal forms. Look who's come to visit us, our mysterious fungus magnate, the small white mouse sighed, pulling out the corresponding papers. How much will it be this time? Finch smiled sympathetically. 5,000 for the month's expenses. Your third-month report was only 10,000, still quite impressive for that beast, but you'll spend your luck very soon if you squander it like it's. Actually, Ren interrupted, I'm here to make a deposit. Finch blinked. Deposit. But you just turned in your last report. Ren placed 10 bright bronze crystals on the counter. Finch's mustache trembled violently. This is 100,000. Look, I have 5 more here. And wait until they double it in the fourth-month report, Ren added with a wide smile. Theodore dropped the forms. In cash, Finch squealed, Theodore, our magnate has returned, and more magnate than ever. The mouse began counting frantically while Finch circled around the counter. Let me see, Finch adjusted his spectacles. With the previous 100,000 plus the 10,000 from the third month plus what's doubled from the third month's report, you've already gathered 220,000 crystals total in 3 months. For the third month, Ren had only managed to obtain 10,000 crystals from the mines. Ren's friends stared at him open-mouthed. Where did you get so much? Just sold some normal materials, Ren laughed. Ha, normal, 15 bright bronze crystals. Theodore, remember when 15 bronze crystals was our annual budget? The mouse nodded solemnly while beginning to count. Though, Finch narrowed his eyes when Ren pocketed the other 5 crystals. Not depositing everything, does the fungus magnate need cash for minor expenses? It's for a project, Ren responded vaguely. Project? Finch's eyes enlarged behind his glasses. What kind of project requires 50,000 crystals in cash? Are you building a mushroom palace? Nests, Ren smiled. Nests, Finch looked at Theodore. Did you hear that, Theodore? Nests. 50,000 crystals for nests. The mouse paused his counting to look at Ren with curiosity. Exactly. Finch removed his spectacles to clean them compulsively. Theodore, Finch turned dramatically. Add luxury nest builder and interior decoration to our list of side hustles to get rich. Your next chapter is on Empire. The mouse pulled out his tiny notebook, diligently noting while his whiskers trembled with amusement. By the way, Ren turned to his friends. Why do you have so much free time? You should join Lin's training. The instant horror on their faces said it all. No, they shouted in unison, backing up several steps. We value our life, Min explained. And our unbroken bones, Liu added. And our dignity, Taro completed. Cowards, Ren smiled. Oh, Finch clapped. You're one of Lin's students. That explains so much and so little at the same time. Theodore, Finch turned to his mouse. Add sadistic training to our list of theories about our fungal friend. The mouse leafed through the tiny notebook and noted diligently. Anything else you need? Finch asked while Theodore finished the paperwork. A personal accountant, an investment advisor, a historian to document the legend of the fungus magnate. Back in the room, Ren took out the rune guide solution. His friends watched with curiosity while he traced precise patterns around the mantis core in the nest full of components. What are you? Min began to ask. Ren took 2 of the 5 bright bronze crystals. No, Liu narrowed his eyes. You wouldn't dare. Don't be ridiculous, Taro laughed nervously. No one would be foolish enough to. Ren pressed the crystals against the rune drawn on the core. His friend's scream of horror probably reached the academy's top floor when the crystal began dissolving, its mana flowing into the core. MYI's Min covered his face dramatically. 20,000 crystals, Liu fell to his knees. Stop, Taro tried to reach Ren. We can still save it, but Ren had already finished with the first core. His mushrooms pulsed while he turned toward the Hydra core, holding the 3 remaining crystals. Min's eyes widened with horror. No, the 3 lunged forward at the same time. Lin's teachings kicked in and the first movement knocked down Liu, who fell with a thud. The second sent Min spinning toward the bed. The third left Taro blinking from the floor, wondering how he got there. If you let me explain. Ren began. Explain what? Liu shouted from his position. How to throw your money in the trash. This one needs an extra step, Ren continued calmly while tracing a different rune on the Hydra core. Since I'm going to change its beast type. He pulled out a male shadow stalker tentacle. Chapter 118, Taming Nests 3. Explain what? Liu shouted from his position. How to throw your money in the trash. This one needs an extra step, Ren continued calmly while tracing a different rune on the Hydra core. Since I'm going to change its beast type. He pulled out a male shadow stalker tentacle. The preserved appendage seemed to writhe slightly in the dim light as if still possessing a fragment of its former life. Min groaned from his bed. Oh great, more monster parts, are you making a collage now? Their mockery transformed into horrified fascination as Ren used the tentacle to methodically destroy the core's edges, systematically erasing the form that defined its original species. The room filled with a subtle humming as he worked, the whisper of ancient magic being undone. The core, now more spherical than before, emitted a soft pulse of light as Ren began tracing new runic symbols with his solution. Taro's whisper was barely audible, his digger beetle's markings darkening with distress. Not the other 30,000. But it was too late. The 3 remaining crystals dissolved one after another, their mana flowing into the modified core like water into parched earth. Each crystal's death drew a collective wince from his audience. The silence that followed was deafening. The 2 cores, after consuming 50,000 crystals worth of resources, simply glowed a bit brighter. Their subtle illumination seemed to mock the fortune that had just been invested in them. That's it. Min's voice was flat with disbelief. He's lost his mind. If you wanted more light, you already have your stupid glowing mushrooms. Liu gestured wildly at Ren's hair, his night bat's ears manifesting in agitation. We don't need more night lights. Taro joined in, his voice rising with hysteria. We can barely sleep with the ones you already have. The mushrooms in Ren's hair pulsed with what appeared to be amusement while his friends continued their lamentations. 50,000 crystals. Min pulled at his hair, his water snake coiling in distress. I only managed to get 5,000 last month with so much effort. This must be a nightmare, Taro suggested hopefully. Are you done? Ren asked calmly while carefully storing the cores in the nests. No. They responded in perfect unison, their voices blending into a chorus of outrage. At least Taro's horrible sculptures were free, Min pointed out desperately. Hey, Taro protested, his pride visibly wounded. My sculptures were art. They were piles of dirt, Taro. Liu and Min responded automatically. The mushrooms in Ren's hair pulsed steadily as he watched his friends argue, their light seeming to dance with silent laughter. Soon they would understand that some wastes were worth far more than any investment. But for now, he found entertainment in their dramatic mourning over his 50,000 crystal lamps. A subtle tremor shook the room, causing the crystals on the desk to tinkle briefly before everything returned to stillness. The vibration was so slight it might have been imagination, yet it left an unsettling feeling in its wake. See, Taro pointed dramatically at the floor. The dragon god of the depths is angry at your waist. Ren's laughter was cut short as he produced 2 more crystals from his bag. His friends immediately launched into panic mode. No more, Min lunged forward, his snake extending protectively. Think of the children, Liu pleaded, though which children he meant remained unclear. Their relief was palpable when they saw they were just common bronze-sized crystals, barely worth 10 points each. The tension in their shoulders visibly eased. Oh, now you use the cheap ones, Taro muttered. With precise movements, Ren began organizing the materials he'd purchased from Jesse. He simulated 2 different cultivation processes, one using the patterns of the Iron Rank Wolverine and another from the Iron Rank Mantis. When you see them turn into eggs, Ren continued casually, as if discussing the weather, don't tell anyone, okay? His friends erupted in laughter, the sound bouncing off the dormitory walls. Oh yeah, Min wiped a tear from his eye, his snake swaying with mirth. Your big secret of turning cores into eggs is safe. Sure thing. And after that, Ren continued, ignoring their laughter, his mushrooms pulsing steadily, when I reach bronze, I'll absorb one to become a double tamer. The silence lasted exactly 3 seconds before his friends doubled over with renewed laughter. A double tamer, Liu clutched his stomach. You haven't even reached bronze rank. With a spore, Min added between gasps. Getting to bronze would already be a miracle. 10 days, Ren murmured while his mushrooms pulsed rhythmically. In 10 days the eggs will be ready, just in time for the friendly tournament. Taro asked, showing genuine curiosity. Yes, though I won't be able to absorb anything yet, Ren explained patiently. I'll only be at about 60 days of cultivation by then, I need 100. And I'll be at 75, we started 25 days late then, Taro added, calculating his own progress. Min and Liu were still laughing. You'll see, Ren smiled as his mushrooms pulsed. I know it's too early to prepare them, but having them ready will give me the motivation to not miss a single day of cultivation. Oh, so you have plenty of motivation not to miss a single day. Lin's deceptively sweet tone from the doorway made all 4 boys stiffen. That's wonderful, she continued as she entered the room, each step deliberately slow. Because you're already late for your night training and I grew tired of waiting. Teacher Lin. Ren began backing away, but there was nowhere to run in the small room. No, Lin smiled. If you have such motivation, surely you'll want to make up for lost time. Before Ren could protest further, Lin grabbed him by the collar, her grip gentle but inexorable. "Guys, help!" Ren called out as he was dragged toward the door, his mushrooms pulsing frantically. "Sorry," Min carefully avoided eye contact. "We value our lives. Traitors." Ren's voice faded down the hallway, leaving his friends in guilty but relieved silence. Find your next read at Empire. "Do you think he can really make eggs?" Taro asked after a moment. "It's more likely Lin will turn him into one," Liu responded dryly. The mushrooms in Ren's hair pulsed weakly as he was dragged to his fate, but a small smile played on his lips. In 10 days, his friends would have to swallow their laughter. If he survived Lin's training, that is. In the director's office, a different kind of conversation was taking place. The setting sun painted the grand windows in shades of amber and gold, its dying light illuminating a young woman who stood before Ignatius's desk. Her posture was perfect, her report delivered with military precision. "His routine hasn't varied since the incident," she explained, her voice crisp and professional. "He begins at dawn with Lin's training, still completely avoiding Professor Wei's class." The director nodded thoughtfully. The bet between Wei and Ren was well known to him through both the professor's complaints and the girl's reports. It would almost certainly result in the boy failing one of his units this semester. Why had he made such a foolish wager unless he attends Professor Yang's class than Zhong's? The girl continued, cutting through his musings. After that, he invariably descends to the mines, and at night, more training with Lin. Ignatius arched an eyebrow, genuine curiosity coloring his voice. "Precisely. Interesting." The director leaned back in his chair, the leather creaking softly. "Most students Lin adopts don't last a month. The pace is intense." In fact, the girl added, a hint of intrigue in her tone, "since the prince left him out of the cave, he seems more animated, as if he's found something that particularly motivates him." The director was about to respond when a sharp knock interrupted their conversation. Without waiting for an answer, Prince Julius strode into the office, his presence immediately filling the room. "Ah, I was beginning to worry." Ignatius straightened in his chair. "How was the investigation?" Chapter 119, Taming Presumption. The director was about to respond when a sharp knock interrupted their conversation. Without waiting for an answer, Prince Julius strode into the office, his presence immediately commanding attention. "Ah, I was beginning to worry." Ignatius straightened in his chair. "How was the investigation?" "I found him. Unfortunately, I couldn't take down the mercenary." Julius shook his head as he leaned against the director's desk, exhaustion evident in every line of his body. The recent pursuit had clearly taken its toll. "I had the complete advantage in power, but when it came to escaping, he proved extraordinarily skilled. I tried following him through the abyss, but there were too many creatures. I ended up wasting energy without achieving anything from there." With a gesture that spoke of pure frustration, the prince hurled a blood-stained backpack onto the desk. The impact resonated through the office with a dull thud, the considerable weight of its contents making the solid wood creak. "At least I managed to wound him significantly," he continued, his eyes gleaming with the memory of combat. Golden light flickered across his irises as his quillin stirred beneath his skin. "He might not survive. I tore off another arm and a leg during our confrontation." The prince straightened. "But using the abyssal power from the start was barely enough for him to escape. He invoked the abyssal vein again. They undoubtedly can control it. The small surge of abyssals attacked me while ignoring him." His fingers clenched into fists. He replaced his lost leg and hand with scorpion appendages almost instantly and ran. "The mutation capacity of abyssal beasts." The director began to mutter, but Julius cut him off with a sharp gesture. "This wasn't a simple mutation." The prince's voice carried an edge. "It was as if the beast was part of him at a deeper level, the way he manipulated those appendages. Too natural, too controlled." "And the normal beast, the hippogriff?" the director asked. "I destroyed its form," Julius responded, bitter satisfaction coloring his voice. "My Wolverine followed the mercenary while I used the Killin. It was a relatively easy battle, but the beast fought to the end." His expression darkened. "By the time I had defeated it, the mercenary had already tricked my beast and escaped quite far. When I caught up, part of the griffin had already regenerated in his body, so he used its wings to move faster and reach the abyss." The director and his cousin listened intently to the story. The girl especially seemed fascinated by the pursuit's details, her eyes never leaving the prince as he spoke. "Stay updated via Empire. What's in the backpack?" his cousin finally asked, her gaze fixed on the bloodied object. Julius pushed it, causing its contents to spill across the desk in a cascade. Dozens of cores rolled across the polished surface, some still stained with dark crimson, others emitting a faint, pulsing glow in the fading light. "Why risk so much for this?" The director picked up one of the cores. Surely they could obtain many others more easily in their territory. Apart from generating random eggs in the controlled veins, cores are practically useless once the beast dies. Maybe they're not so useless. The prince's voice dropped lower, heavy with implication. Maybe there's something we don't understand but they do. What if it's not the quantity that matters but the specific type? If they've discovered how to hatch them, if they're from specific creatures that help them. His eyes narrowed, like the one from the mercenary infiltrating us. His words fell heavily in the room, each syllable weighted with unspoken threats. The director observed the cores scattered across his desk with renewed concern while the prince's cousin began collecting them, her movements precise and methodical. The setting sun filtered through the office windows, making the cores gleam with an ominous light. What had seemed like worthless remains now represented a potential threat none of them had considered. What if it's not coincidence? What if they're collecting specific cores to facilitate their mass infiltrations? We need to investigate this further, the director began, but the prince was already walking toward the door, his Killen's light casting elongated shadows. I'm already doing something about it, Julius paused in the threshold. For now, I need you to complete the paperwork for the extra guards, and you, dear cousin, keep watching our friend very carefully. The door closed behind him with a soft click, leaving the director and his cousin contemplating the situation, silent witnesses to an approaching war that was taking an unexpected turn. Ren's muscles screamed in protest as he settled into his bed. Every movement sent waves of pain through his overtaxed body, reminders of Lynn's particularly brutal training session. He took the recovery pill she had given him, feeling the familiar warmth spreading through his limbs as the special medicine took effect. The constant ache began to fade, replaced by a gentle tingling sensation that promised relief. The mushrooms in his hair pulsed softly as his gaze drifted to the two cores resting on his nightstand. The mantis and hydra cores glowed faintly with the mana he had invested in them. His trunk caught his attention, specifically the two eggs hidden within, the ambush bug egg especially. He could sell it. There were always buyers interested in rare eggs, and though bugs weren't popular, their rarity guaranteed a good price if he was patient enough to find the right buyer or collector. But finding it already transformed was too lucky, he thought as his mushroom's glow momentarily distracted Taro. It could be useful later. His eyes drifted to where he kept the Abyssal Shadow Stalker core. Though he couldn't use it yet, his knowledge didn't cover Abyssals. Perhaps when his spore increased in rank there would be interesting possibilities. Bronze rank with 2 beasts. He could become strong enough to defeat beasts with real cores when he reached that level. The thought made his heartbeat hasten with anticipation. Could he obtain more cores in the future to produce more eggs, transform them for use or sale? The mushrooms pulsed insistently, reminding him of reality. First, he needed to become stronger. Dealing with bronze-rank beasts was too dangerous at his current level. Luck and knowledge would only take him so far. He needed real power to back up his plans. Hey. Taro's voice pulled him from his thoughts. His roommate sat cross-legged on his bed, surrounded by books and notes from Wei's class. The flickering candlelight cast dancing shadows across his unusually serious expression. Do you really believe my beetle can evolve beyond bronze? Taro fidgeted nervously with his pen. Truth is, I've tried not to get my hopes up, but... He paused, searching for the right words in the dim light. You always surprise us, he finally continued, voice thick with emotion. With your knowledge, with your predictions. Now if even those cores transform into eggs, I won't be able to help it anymore. And now, with my beetle's cultivation, Tears began forming in his eyes. Chapter 120, Taming the Prince Investment. He paused, searching for the right words in the dim light. You always surprise us, he finally continued, voice thick with emotion. With your knowledge, with your predictions. Now if even those cores transform into eggs, I won't be able to help it anymore. And now, with my beetle's cultivation, Tears began forming in his eyes. The mushrooms pulsed gently as Ren watched his friend struggle with his doubts. I'm scared, Taro admitted in a whisper that barely disturbed the night air. Scared that this hope will turn into disappointment. Everyone says it's impossible, that I should be content with bronze rank 2 at most. Ren sat up in his bed, ignoring the protest of his aching muscles. I promise you that won't happen. How can you be so sure? Because, Ren smiled with quiet confidence, I see what others can't, and you have potential you can't even imagine. Taro opened his mouth to respond, but a sharp knock at the door interrupted them. The sound echoed strangely in the quiet dormitory. Who could be visiting at this hour? Did Liu forget his key again? Taro rose, setting aside his studies. No, they told me. Ren shook his head. He and Min are in the library until late. Liu's helping Min with an assignment. Another knock, more insistent this time. Good evening, Ren, Prince Julius smiled when the door opened, his presence immediately filling the small room. How have you been? Without waiting for an invitation, he strode inside. His eyes immediately fixed on the cores resting in their elaborate nests of diverse materials. Interesting, he murmured, studying the setup with undisguised curiosity. I see you've been busy. Taro had frozen on his bed, textbooks forgotten as he watched the crown prince enter their dormitory for the second time. I brought you a gift, Julius continued, dropping a stained backpack onto the floor. Dozens of cores rolled across the wooden planks, their dull surfaces catching the light from Ren's mushrooms. Ren showed his surprise as he observed the sheer quantity of cores scattered before him. I was thinking, the prince casually leaned against Taro's desk, his Killen's power subtly manifesting in golden ripples across his skin. Instead of taking them back to be converted into random ones, how about I leave them with you to show me what you can do with them? Ren glanced between the cores and the prince. Oh, don't worry, Julius waved a dismissive hand. The castle has far more than we can process anyway. Ren's mushrooms pulsed as he analyzed the cores. They all appeared to be from scorpions, their essence still faintly resonating with their original nature. Filling them all with mana will be difficult, Ren commented cautiously, acutely aware of Taro's presence. You have time, the prince smiled. Besides, I think that vein we found will be safe for quite a while. He winked at Ren. Julius transformed his stomach into something resembling a bottomless void and pulled out an enormous package. I also brought you these. He unwrapped it to reveal 10 more Hydra plates. This should give you enough to work with for a while. Ren nodded slowly, noting how the prince carefully avoided mentioning eggs specifically in front of Taro. Stay connected through Empire though, Julius added casually. In your next demonstration, I'd like to see if you can do something more. Interesting, like a Hydra one, for example. Ren felt his throat go dry. His mushrooms pulsed erratically as he searched for an excuse, but then he noticed something peculiar. Among all the scattered cores, there wasn't a single Hydra one, they were all scorpion cores. Wouldn't it be strange for the intruder who was trying so hard to get a Hydra core not to have any among their collection? The prince followed his gaze. Oh, I hadn't paid attention to that. To me, all cores were just cores. His smile widened. Thank you for noticing. He moved toward the door. Unfortunately, my vacation has to end. My siblings must be drowning in work without me. Before leaving, he paused in the threshold. I'll visit you again, Ren. I have a feeling you'll do very interesting things in the future. Ren scratched his head, unsure how to respond as the door closed behind the prince. What just happened? Taro finally found his voice. Ren surveyed the cores scattered across the floor. The prince had been somewhat careful with his words, but the message was clear. He knew more than he let on. Seems I have more work than I thought, he murmured as he began gathering the cores. Day 105, Liu sighed while checking his calendar. Only 75 days left until the end of semester. Min looked up from his books, his water snake coiling lazily around his shoulders. 105 days have passed already, feels like we just arrived yesterday. We should be going gathering today, Taro commented while absorbing his daily crystal. His cultivation was on day 75. At least we have the tournament to distract us, Min tried to sound optimistic. 3 days of competition. Ren, who was organizing his trunk, struggled to make space among his materials. The 15 Hydra plates and cores took up an enormous amount of room, even the space under his bed hadn't been spared. Most are from the prince, he insisted when he noticed his friend's knowing looks. Sure, Liu smiled. Like the 100,000 crystals you casually deposited the other day. Or the 50,000 you invested in your core lamps, Min added. Oh, Taro perked up. Did you hear about our tournament prize? Professor Yang will announce it today, but I overheard some senior students talking about it. No, is it something good? Liu asked, noticing Taro's excitement. It must be. Taro practically bounced on his bed. It's to compensate for the cancelled gathering trip after all. I didn't get that kinda event last year, but I bet it's special materials, Liu speculated. Like Ren's Hydra plates. The ones worth 30,000 each, Min whistled. Most are from the prince, Ren repeated, or maybe some bronze shine crystals, Taro continued excitedly. Like the ones Ren wastes on his nests, the ones that cost 10,000 each, Min recalled. It's not a waste, Ren muttered, the bell rang. Oh, Min jumped up. It's time, Yang's going to make the announcement. All four hurried to the training field, where other students were already gathering. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the packed earth as they found their places. Yang waited for everyone to settle before beginning. This friendly tournament will compensate for the gathering trip, his voice resonated across the field. 3 days of competition, the best teams will prove their worth. The tension was palpable as students waited for the prize announcement. The winning team, Yang made a dramatic pause, will be exempt from the final Tamer battle exam and receive 10,000 crystals for each member. Min, Liu, and Taro slowly turned to look at Ren, who tried to maintain a neutral expression. 10,000. Min murmured, like one-third of a hydra plate, Liu calculated, or one of his nest crystals, Taro added, the three sighed in unison. The plates are from the prince, Ren repeated automatically, his mushrooms now definitely pulsing with amusement. Still, Min complained. After seeing your 100,000 deposit, and the 30,000 you spent on materials with Jesse, and the 50,000 on your lamps, and they're from the prince. Ren interrupted, but this time he didn't even try to hide his smile. The mushrooms in his hair pulsed cheerfully while his friends continued lamenting how 10,000 crystals no longer sounded impressive after witnessing Ren's investments. At least, Liu grinned, we know who to borrow from if we need money. If he sells any of his 15 hydra plates, Min laughed. Most are from the prince, all three chorused along with Ren bursting into laughter. Chapter 121, Tamer's Friendly Competition. In the dormitory room, Min and Taro were visibly depressed. 5,000 for second place, Min collapsed onto his bed, and 1,000 points for third and fourth. Not even real money for fifth to eighth place, Taro sighed, absently turning his daily cultivation crystal between his fingers. His beetle's markings had dulled to match his mood. Liu laughed from his desk. What did you expect? That they'd hand out fortunes like Ren's? Ren listened while organizing his materials, trying to find space where none existed. Anyway, Liu continued, it's not like you had a chance of winning. Luna's famous wolf will sweep everyone aside, and if not her, it'll be Klein's expensive beasts or some other noble. Liu's right. Maybe we should focus on the mines, Min murmured, then grimaced. Although lately. It's impossible to find decent veins, Taro completed the thought. And Ren always disappears shortly after we enter to search for good veins alone. Selfish mushroom. Ren's mushrooms pulsed as guilt pricked at his conscience. His expeditions to the depths were still too dangerous to bring a group that would make more noise. The interrupted gathering trip was terrible too, Min continued, his snake mimicking his dejected posture. Only 1,000 crystals from the weaver's thread. I can only say I did better than the rest with 1,500 because I sold the thread to Ren. At least you got extra, Taro sank deeper into his bed. If my mother hadn't sent money, I still wouldn't have the defense rune, 12,000 crystals. You would have gotten it, Ren interjected, though barely 5 days before the 100 days limit. How are we supposed to cultivate higher ranks like this? Min complained. The mines are practically empty in the safe levels now, and we've already lost 5 days of gathering outside. Ren considered how to cheer up his friends. We can try to win at least one round and I'll give you my 1,000 crystal prize if we don't manage even that. This tournament is just preliminary, he began. The important one will be the final exam. By then, Taro will have evolved and will have a better chance. If I evolve, Taro muttered. You will, Ren affirmed with conviction. And when you rank up, you'll be able to get better materials. I'll teach you how to deal with the weaker worms. There are specific techniques you can use with your next ability that. And now you're going to disappear with Taro in the mines, Liu teased. Ren ignored the comment and turned to Min. You could start your cultivation too. Your snake has potential and… Ah no, Min waved his hands nervously. I prefer to wait and see how it goes for Taro first. Fine, I won't insist. But back to the tournament topic, you should at least try, we've practiced. Besides, he continued, we don't need to win to pass Yang's class, just give a good demonstration and… The bell's ring interrupted him. The four exchanged glances, it was time. At least, Min tried to joke as they stood up, if we lose quickly, we can go to the mines before other teams finish. And follow Ren, maybe this time we'll catch him before he disappears and reveal his secrets, Liu added. We'll find his magical vein of infinite crystals. Ren rolled his eyes. The training field had been transformed for the tournament. In the first semester zone, only 8 teams were going to fight. The teams had arrived and Yang explained the battle format. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the packed earth as students took their positions. Ren, Min, and Taro observed their competitors with careful attention. Klein stood proudly apart with his team, his golden lion manifesting in brilliant patterns. Feng and Astor flanked him. Near them, another team of nobles who constantly sought their approval practiced their formations. Luna and her 2 companions, maids, remained silent in their corner, her shadow wolf barely visible as a rippling darkness around her. The other noble girls, her cousins and the other maid, maintained a calculated distance from everyone else. Jin and his group occupied the opposite end of the field, and beside them had formed another team that lately seemed to gravitate toward their influence. Han and his companions were there too. 8 teams, In the stands, 6 new girls observed the preparations. Though they had arrived recently, they had already integrated themselves into the noble circle, orbiting especially around Luna and her cousins. It was curious how the teachers barely made them participate in class, and now they wouldn't compete in the tournament either. Remember that since most of you are young and your beasts are still not very resistant, no weapons or offensive skills in dangerous body areas will be allowed or Yang, and I will stop you and disqualify you, Lin warned them. First match, Yang announced. Jin's team versus Larissa's team. The maid with the armadillo took central position, Larissa and Leora flanking her. Find exclusive stories on my virtual library empire facing them. Jin smiled as Kai advanced to the vanguard, his green scales gleaming under the sun. Cass moved to the right, her eagle partially manifesting in shimmering feather patterns across her skin. Begin, Yang gave the signal. Kai launched forward, activating his speed enhanced by his lizard legs. The maid responded by activating the armadillo's shield skill, creating a semicircular barrier that covered all 3 of them. But Cass and Jin ran to the sides, their movements fluid and practiced. Now, Jin ordered. Cass began launching small cutting wind bursts while Jin circled around the shield to attack from behind, his spiritual claws gleaming with ethereal light. Leora's blue hair rippled like flames as she dodged the wind cuts, but she didn't counterattack. Her movements were graceful, almost dance-like, but she was clearly holding back. The faint glow around Larissa intensified slightly when Jin approached, but she too didn't respond with power. Instead, she relied solely on hand-to-hand combat techniques to counter Jin's advances. We have them cornered. Kai pressed against the shield. The maid maintained her position, the armadillo channeling more power into the barrier. Larissa and Leora continued moving with grace, dodging attacks, but never utilizing their beast skills. Ren observed from the stands, noting how the 2 nobles contained their beast features and abilities as always. For most, it would be difficult to guess the girls' beasts for this reason, since many beasts shared flames or glows, but not for Ren. Leora's will-o-wisp could have launched devastating flames, while Larissa's mineral light fairy could have easily blinded their opponents or defended its tamer even better than Kai's lizard. Even short spatial jumps would have completely changed the course of the battle, because both could do them. They were truly powerful creatures like Luna's wolf, but for some reason they didn't want to show them. Chapter 122, Tamer's Friendly Competition 2. Leora's will-o-wisp could have launched devastating flames, while Larissa's mineral light fairy could have easily blinded their opponents or defended its tamer even better than Kai's lizard. Even short spatial jumps would have completely changed the course of the battle, because both could do them. They were truly powerful creatures like Luna's wolf, but for some reason they didn't want to show them. Ren had a theory, based on the prince's face and the familiar resemblance some of the girls' features shared after being close to him for a while. Also on the fact that no random eggs could produce such beasts, they had to come from unique eggs unavailable in the market. Unlike Luna's beast, the eggs of these creatures would be many times more costly. If Luna's wolf could compete with them, it was only due to her enormous luck in obtaining it from a random black egg. They had to be very important people. But the fact that they weren't searched for during the first excursion's attack by the Abyssals must have been because they hid to look as plain nobles. Yet Ren had one doubt when looking at the girl's features. Luna, why didn't she hide? Experience new stories on my virtual library empire. Jin increased the pressure, his spirit claws slicing through the air ever closer to striking Larissa. She simply stepped back, her glow barely perceptible beneath her skin. They're boxing themselves in. Cass intensified her attacks, creating a rain of wind cuts that forced Leora to move closer to the shield. The air itself seemed to shimmer with each slice. The maid adjusted her position, maintaining the barrier though the effort was beginning to show. The armadillo's plates glowed with increasing strain, their light flickering under the pressure. Lost shield formation, Jin commanded. Kai suddenly withdrew while Cass and Jin converged from both sides. The maid stepped forward accidentally when Kai's pressure disappeared, forced to pivot the shield to protect her ladies. This left her back exposed, which Kai immediately exploited. His green plates blazed on his fist as he struck the girl. Simultaneously, Jin and Cass launched their most powerful attacks, their beasts' energies harmonizing in deadly synchronization. Larissa and Leora could have used their spatial jumps to reposition. Instead, they moved conventionally, allowing themselves to be caught in the attack pattern. The combination was devastating. Cass's wind cuts forced Leora toward Jin's spirit claws, while Kai finally broke through the maid's defensive formation. The coordinated assault left no room for escape. After that, the noble girls tried to win with hand-to-hand combat techniques, even getting close to knocking Jin out, but ultimately Jin's group's liberal use of abilities proved too much for them. Victory for Jin's team, Yang announced. The nobles withdrew gracefully, showing no frustration at their defeat. The maid bowed respectfully, her armadillo features fading from view like morning mist. Good battle, Jin smiled, but there was something mocking in his gaze. From the stands, the 6 new girls observed in silence. Their expressions remained unreadable as the nobles returned to their side. Next match. Yang announced, Klein's team versus Roran's team. The Goldcrest family heir stepped forward with his usual arrogance, his golden lion manifesting in an impressively generous mane. Feng, whose red cobra created scarlet scales across his skin, and a Store with his rhinoceros's bluish plates, flanked him with similar aristocratic bearing. On the other side, Roran's team took their positions. His troll dog, a robust beast with grayish skin, fully manifested as it adopted a defensive stance at the front. Myra, his companion with a giant rat, let her beast's moss and flowers bloom across her arms as she positioned herself on the left. The vibrant growth pulsed with gentle energy. Trent and his fire ant completed the formation on the right, heat shimming around him. Begin, Klein didn't even move. Seeing that Roran had fully released his beast, he did the same, and with a casual gesture, his lion roared, creating a golden pressure wave that forced his opponents back. Feng followed suit, his cobra slithering forward, scarlet scales gleaming as it spat a stream of venom toward Myra. The giant rat created a moss barrier, but the venom began corroding it instantly, eating through the green defense like acid. Astor's rhinoceros charged at Trent. The power of its charge made the ground tremble, forcing the fire ant to abandon its position. Hold formation. Roran shouted, his troll dog struggling to break free from the paralyzing effect of Klein's lion. Pathetic, Klein smiled as his lion pounced, attacking with golden claws that left trails of light in the air. Myra's rat managed to regenerate its moss enough to dodge another of Feng's attacks, but the cobra's scales began to glow with greater intensity. The next stream of venom didn't hit the moss. It made a parabola aimed directly at Myra's feet, forcing her to jump out of the way. The rhinoceros charged from the flank, channeling power into a strike that shattered Trent's fire ant's defense. The wall of flames was impressive, but the rhinoceros's bluish plates shone, creating a barrier that nullified the damage completely. The ant was crushed beneath its power. Roran's troll dog was knocked down by Klein's lion, its gray claws scraping the ground in desperate attempts to escape its grip. This is boring, Klein sighed. Feng Astor, let's end this. Feng's red cobra coiled around his arm while scarlet scales covered more of his skin. The venom it spat this time, guided by Feng's will, formed a complete circle around Roran's team. Astor's rhinoceros charged again. The ground beneath its feet cracked and splintered as it rushed forward. Klein simply extended his hand, his lion roaring one final time to paralyze them. The golden pressure combined with Astor's charge, amplifying the rhinoceros's power to devastating effect. The result was brutal. Myra's rat's moss withered instantly as it was knocked out, and Yang stopped the battle before real damage could be done. Victory for Klein's team, Yang announced, though it was unnecessary. Klein didn't even look at his defeated opponents as he withdrew, Feng and Astor following with the same arrogance with which they had entered. From the stands, Jin observed in silence. His expression remained neutral, but his eyes tracked Klein's every movement with predatory focus. Klein paused briefly, looking toward where Luna watched the battles. For a moment, his expression shifted from arrogance to something else. But the moment passed quickly as he continued on his way, the golden lion fading from his skin like sunset's last rays. Next match, Yang called. Luna's team against. Chapter 123, Tamer's Friendly Competition 3, Luna's team against Hector's team. Yang announced, his voice carrying across the hushed training field. Luna stepped gracefully onto the field, her shadow wolf barely visible as a dark silhouette at her feet, rippling like ink in water. Her noble companions, in reality her maids, took flanking positions. The cloud bird of one created soft wisps in the air, while the small tree growing from the other's turtle shell swayed gently. In the stands, students leaned forward, eager to witness Luna's infamous combat style. Even the new noble girls seemed to pay closer attention, their usual aloof expressions showing hints of genuine interest. Hector, leader of Klein's follower team, manifested his minotaur, its horns gleaming menacingly as he took center position. The beast's power radiated in waves of barely contained aggression. To his right, Vern let his centaur fully materialize, its hooves resonating against the ground in a steady rhythm. The hybrid beast's muscles rippled with anticipation. Rosalind completed the formation, her three-horned horse pawing the earth eagerly. The beast's three horns caught the sunlight like polished spears, their points promising swift and decisive strikes. Begin! Hector's minotaur charged immediately, its horns blazing as it aimed for Luna. Vern's centaur flanked right while the tri-horned horse attacked from the left. The triple attack formation would have overwhelmed most opponents through sheer power alone. Luna smiled. Her maid's beasts moved to intercept, the cloud bird creating a curtain of mist while the tree turtle generated many thin wooden stakes at the front. They appeared to be a weak defense against the charging power of three noble beasts. Some spectators even muttered about the apparent mismatch, but it was going exactly as Luna had planned. Just as the Minotaur was about to impact the barrier, the maids melted into the mist and Luna vanished into the shadows. Her wolf emerged behind Hector, its fangs gleaming as they prepared to bite his leg. Behind, Vern shouted, spinning to protect his companion. But there was nothing there except lingering shadows. Luna appeared from Vern's own shadow, her precise strike finding a pressure point in his neck that sent him stumbling off balance. The attack was so swift that many in the audience missed it entirely, seeing only its effects. At the front, Rosalind turned and attempted to charge Luna, but the cloud bird had created enough cover for the shadow wolf to slide through the mist, arriving at Rosalind's back, biting not too deep, as permitted the girl's leg before she could attack Luna from behind. Defensive formation. Hector ordered upon seeing his injured companion, his minotaur backing up to protect him and his teammates. The tree turtle advanced then, its seemingly harmless skill becoming a threat. It began creating more stakes between the boys to separate them, and when the horse tried to charge back, roots extended with surprising speed, entangling its feet. Luna switched places with her wolf just as the centaur tried to stomp her. The wolf dodged the slow attack meant for Luna and its fangs found the beast's flank, while Luna materialized behind Rosalind like a ghost. The cloud bird's mist had spread across the entire field, creating a labyrinth of shadows and sticks that Luna and her wolf exploited with devastating efficiency. Hector struggled to free his minotaur, also caught by the roots, but one of the maids emerged behind him for a knockout strike. The wolf also surfaced from below, its fangs finding the beast's belly. The minotaur roared one final time before fading, returning to Hector's unconscious body. Rosalind and her tri-horned horse were the last to fall, but their resistance proved no different from their companions, and with her injured leg it was only a matter of time. The end came swiftly, almost merciful in its precision. Victory for Luna's team, Yang announced. The mist dissipated slowly, revealing the three defeated nobles and Luna standing at the field's center, her shadow wolf once again barely visible at her feet. Her maids maintained neutral expressions, as if their role in the strategy had been insignificant. From the stands, Klein watched with burning intensity. The shadow wolf's power was impressive, but it was Luna's tactical precision that truly stood out. The defeated nobles rose with what dignity they could muster after receiving preventive healing from an assistance beast. They would head straight to the infirmary, but their pride was more wounded than their bodies. Stay connected with my virtual library empire still. Despite their defeat, they had shown considerable skill and coordination. They had simply been outmatched by superior strategy and beast. Luna inclined her head slightly in acknowledgement as she withdrew, her maids following like if they were normal noble girl subordinates. Next match, Yang called, drawing attention back to the field. Ren's team versus Han's team. Ren studied their opponent's formation as they took positions, Han's Weaver Spider. Their greatest threat, its ability to control the battlefield, more devastating the longer they leave him alone. Sora, with her deer's antlers gleaming in her hair, took the left flank, while Jun with his monkey hands positioned himself on the right. Remember the plan, Ren murmured. Taro contains Sora and Jun Min keep Taro standing. His mushrooms pulsed as he analyzed their opponent's manifestation patterns. Han's web was the priority, being the worst matchup for Taro. Once neutralized, the others would lose their main tactical advantage. Begin. Sora launched forward immediately, activating her skill to increase his speed to levels comparable to Kai's. Jun activated his skill too, though there was nothing to climb here, the boost it gave was useful. His muscles visibly swelling as his monkey's strength increased from 30% to 60%. Taro advanced to intercept them with his skill also activated, his shell gleaming as he expanded his defense. Min began channeling water, ready to heal or attack as needed. Han started weaving webs around himself, creating hexagonal patterns. Ren moved laterally, studying how light refracted through the nearly invisible threads. Sora rammed against Taro's shield, his manifested antlers clashing against the reinforced shell. Jun took advantage to flank, his enhanced strength making each blow resonate. Hold on. Min directed a concentrated water jet toward Jun, forcing him to retreat while using another stream to heal the cracks in Taro's defense. Ren dodged Han's first web, noting how the mana had been channeled for the attack even before it was launched. The edges, he thought while jumping aside, they're 4 meters from his hip. Chapter 124, Tamer's Friendly Competition 4 Hold On. Min directed a concentrated water jet toward Jun, forcing him to retreat while using another stream to heal the cracks in Taro's defense. Ren dodged Han's first web, noting how the mana had been channeled for the attack even before it was launched. The edges, he thought while jumping aside, they're 4 meters from his hip. Jun vaulted over Taro with monkey-enhanced agility, attempting to strike at Min. Taro's arm extended just in time, his shell's reinforced surface intercepting the blow while Min counterattacked with a precise water jet to Jun's face. The coordination between defenders and healer had become almost instinctive. Sora seized the momentary distraction to charge again, her antlers blazing with accumulated power. Taro pivoted to intercept, but the sheer force of impact drove him back several steps, leaving small furrows in the packed earth. Han had woven an intricate network of hexagons, the nearly invisible threads limiting Ren's movement options. The pattern was beautiful in its complexity, a deadly spider's web catching the afternoon light, but instead of retreating, Ren advanced. The weaving pattern has a rhythm, his mushrooms pulsed as he analyzed each intersection, 3 gaps large enough for me between each main connection. Ren slid between the web's gaps with serpentine grace. Lin's technique gave him the confidence to approach, but it was his analytical mind that revealed the exact paths through Han's deadly maze. Han's eyes widened in surprise. He hadn't expected the mushroom boy to enter his trap zone so directly. Spectators leaned forward, sensing something unprecedented was about to unfold again. Meanwhile, Taro held Jun at bay, his carapace absorbing blow after enhanced blow while Min alternated between healing his fracturing defense and keeping Sora at distance with precisely aimed water jets. Their teamwork had evolved dramatically since their first training sessions, each movement supporting the others. Ren surveyed the battlefield with calculating eyes. Han's hexagonal webs reached only hip height, unable to rise higher without anchor points, a limitation of the field he could exploit. In a forest, Han would have been far more problematic for them. Han launched another web trying to snare Ren as he approached. The hexagons gleamed faintly, nearly invisible except for how they distorted light and their mana content. The pattern was mesmerizing but deadly. Ren moved. Not backward as Han expected, but sideways. A calculated leap carried him over the low webs, landing perfectly in another gap. Then he sprang forward to finally close the distance, but got you. Han's smile was triumphant as he launched a web directly into Ren's trajectory mid-air. Time seemed to slow. He was in trouble but not trapped, not yet. Ren hung suspended in the air, the web approaching with inexorable certainty. From the stands, several students held their breath. It seemed impossible to dodge in that position. Jin's smile widened knowingly. Ren, Min's cry echoed across the field, but he couldn't help while maintaining Taro's defense. Sora tried to exploit the opening to charge Min. Her antlers blazed as she rushed forward, but Taro remained vigilant. In a move that demonstrated how much his initiative had improved since his defeat against Jin, thanks to the hope Ren had given him, Taro grabbed one of Sora's antlers. Using her own charging momentum against her, he spun and hurled her directly into Jun. The impact sent both sprawling. Ren calculated angles and distances in the split second he had left. The web approached, its hexagons glowing with Han's anticipated victory. Now, the mushrooms in his hair flared brilliantly, temporarily blinding Han with their sudden radiance. It was all he needed. In that same instant, Ren covered his right hand with spores. As the web was about to catch him, he grabbed one of the threads he'd been jumping over and pulled hard, canceling his jump's forward momentum to drop faster. The spores adhered to the sticky thread while his hand came away clean. Han blinked away the afterimages, expecting to see Ren trapped in his web, but there was nothing above. Discover hidden stories at my virtual library Empire. The strike came from below. Ren had crawled under the web network. His kick connected perfectly with his opponent's legs, sweeping the weaver off his feet. Han tried to break his fall by putting his hands down, but before they could touch earth, Ren's fist was already threading between his arms. The uppercut, perfected through countless sessions with Lin, found exactly the right point on Han's jaw. The weaver crashed unconscious to the ground. Han is out, Yang announced, his voice cutting through the stunned silence. When Taro had thrown them together, Sora and Jun collapsed in a tangle of limbs, giving Ren time to rejoin his teammates. Their expressions showed a mixture of relief and renewed determination. Without Han's support, the combat dynamics shifted dramatically as Ren joined the fray. Shall we finish this? Ren smiled, his mushrooms pulsing as he adopted one of Lin's combat stances. Min and Taro nodded, falling into position beside him. Taro and Ren moved to flank their opponents while protecting their healer. Lin's training sessions with Ren and their practice as a team finally bore fruit. Within minutes, Sora and Jun also lay defeated. Their resistance was skilled but futile against the team's synchronized assault. Victory for Ren's team. The first round has concluded, Yang announced while assistants tended to the minor injuries. The mushrooms in Ren's hair pulsed softly as he helped hand to his feet. The weaver blinked in confusion, still processing what had happened. How? He began to ask. My spores, Ren explained, showing him the residue still clinging to the thread. They stuck to the thread, but my hand didn't. Hand studied the spores for a moment before laughing, using my own web as an anchor point. Brilliant. From the stands, Luna observed with renewed interest, unable to completely hide a small smile from her watchful maids. Her shadow wolf seemed to ripple at her feet. For the semifinals, Luna's team versus Jin's team, Klein's team versus Ren's team. Ren's mushrooms pulsed steadily as he looked toward where Klein smiled arrogantly, his golden lion's mane shimmering. The real test was about to begin. Chapter 125. Taming promises. The room was illuminated by the light of 3 moons when they returned from the infirmary, casting triple shadows that danced across the walls. Their injuries had been minor, bruises and scratches that the auxiliaries had healed quickly. Well, at least you made it to the semifinals. Liu tried to lift the mood as he settled at his desk. That's more than most people expected. Min collapsed onto his bed, stretching muscles that still ached despite the healing. His water snake coiled dejectedly around his belly. Yeah, and now we get to face the strongest team in the tournament. Perfect. Maybe Luna's team is stronger, though it depends on how you look at it. If you'd been matched against Jin's team, you'd have had a chance, Liu continued, trying to find silver linings. Their beasts are strong, but not at Klein's team's level. Those are too much, even with Ren's strategies. Yeah, strategies don't help much when there's such a huge power gap, Taro muttered. Ren stood by the window, his mushrooms pulsing softly as he mentally reviewed every possibility. He wanted to tell them there was a way, that if they tried hard enough and executed the perfect plan. But even with all his knowledge, he couldn't find a viable solution. The gap was simply too wide. Klein's golden lion, Feng's red cobra, Astor's rhinoceros, all beasts with explosive growth in their early stages. Their raw power was evident in every movement, every manifestation. In contrast, Taro's beetle would need time to reach its true potential. Min's snake was just beginning to develop its water abilities. And his mushrooms. Well, the intense glow only worked up to a point and wouldn't surprise anyone anymore. He didn't want to give them false hope. It wouldn't be fair to promise an impossible victory. Hey, don't make those faces, Liu tried again, his night bat manifesting slightly in response to his concern. Nobody expected you to get this far, just being in the semifinals is. Maybe we can find a way to lose with style, Min completed with a resigned smile, his snake mimicking his defeated posture. Ren finally turned to face his friends. His mushrooms pulsed steadily as he made a decision. You should be happy, he said, drawing everyone's attention. At least you're guaranteed 1,500 crystals each. Taro blinked in confusion, his beetle's markings swirling with surprise. But third place is only 1,000 points. I'll give you my share, Ren explained, his mushrooms casting gentle light patterns across the room. I don't really need it and… Oh, Min sat up straighter, a hint of his usual humor returning. The generous magnate doesn't need his prize because he has a trunk full of hydra plates. Which are from the prince, Liu added automatically, triggering laughter that helped ease the tension. It's not because of that, Ren smiled, his mushrooms pulsing with amusement. It's because you worked hard following the plan and… A knock at the door interrupted him. The mushrooms in his hair pulsed with sudden alertness as everyone turned toward the entrance. It was late, and after the day they'd had. Another knock, more insistent this time. Ren approached the door, his mushrooms analyzing the presence on the other side. Whoever it was carried an aura of purpose that seemed unusually intense for this hour. Stay connected with my virtual library empire. The male wings corridors were practically deserted at this hour, moonlight creating patches of silver and shadow across the wooden floors. A girl moved with the practiced grace of someone accustomed to avoiding notice, her blue hair barely visible in the darkness as she slipped between shadows. Each step was precisely placed, each movement calculated for silence. Like so many other nights, her destination was Ren's room. It had become routine, listen, observe, report, but tonight something was different. A movement in the perpendicular hallway made her quicken her pace. For an instant, a flash of her blue hair was illuminated by moonlight through a window before she vanished around the corner. Klein, passing by, froze mid-step. Luna, the blue hair, the direction. His eyes narrowed as he processed that this corridor led directly to Ren's room. His golden lion stirred beneath his skin, responding to his rising tension. The knocks at the door startled the room's occupants from their contemplation. Ren approached cautiously, his mushroom's light revealing his friend's concerned expressions. When he opened it, Klein shoved the door with enough force to make Ren step back instinctively into a defensive stance. Feng and Astor flanked Klein but remained in the hallway, their beasts partially manifesting as their leader scanned the room with narrowed eyes, as if searching for something. Or someone. Hey, Min jumped up, his water snake coiling protectively around him. You can't just barge in like that. Ren, hide the plates, Taro whispered urgently. Maybe they're here to steal them. If he steals anything he'll be expelled, noble or not, Liu interjected. The academy is extremely strict about obtained items. The value must be doubled by them, so they're very careful about where things come from. Klein diverted his attention from the corner he'd been examining. I'm not interested in your miserable possessions, he spat, though it was clear he had no idea of the wealth Ren had accumulated. Not that it mattered, as the Goldcrest heir, money was the least of his concerns. His eyes swept the room one final time before focusing on Ren with laser intensity. I came to tell you something directly. His golden lion manifested partially, creating brilliant patterns across his skin and expanding his mane into a corona of power. Tomorrow I will humiliate you in front of everyone. When they see the abyssal difference between us, perhaps you'll finally understand your place. Ren's mushrooms pulsed with growing irritation as Klein spoke of humiliation. It was one thing to know the battle would be difficult for them, he himself had been considering it moments before, but seeing how his friends lowered their gazes before Klein's threats, Ren's mushrooms pulsed as he studied Klein. There was something more than simple arrogance in his bearing, an extra tension, an irritation that went beyond his usual disdain. His golden lion's manifestation seemed almost unstable with emotion. Once I demonstrate how insignificant you are, Klein continued, his voice carrying an edge of something personal, it will be perfectly clear that approaching Luna is forbidden. Taro and Min exchanged confused looks. Luna, what did she have to do with this? After all, Klein raised his voice slightly, as if wanting someone else to hear, a promised girl shouldn't be meeting other men in secret. The silence that followed was absolute. Ren's friends stared at Klein uncomprehendingly, while Feng and Astor seemed equally confused by their leader's comment. The tension in the room grew thick enough to cut. Promised, Min finally broke the silence. What are you talking about? Klein ignored the question, his eyes fixed on Ren with burning intensity. Tomorrow you'll learn your place, Mushroom, and I hope that afterwards certain people remember their obligations to. I told you before, Ren stepped forward, cutting off Klein's monologue. That kind of discourse is for halfwits. Klein froze in the doorway, his golden lion manifesting more fully until its power filled the corridor with shimmering light. What did you say?